Imagine being told that a perfectly crafted metallic globe, discovered deep within Colombia, might be 12,000 years old, and that science still grapples with its very existence. Consider that, at this very instant, a radiant crimson object originating from beyond our solar system is hurtling towards the sun, defying all established principles of cometary behavior. Now, what if these two unfathomable enigmas are not isolated incidents, but are, in fact, communicating with each other right now? You will learn how ancient tales of global deluges and celestial infernos might not be mere fables, but echoes of prior epochs, of forgotten civilizations that faced this very same trial. You will uncover the reasons why governmental bodies maintain stringent, armed secrecy around this sphere. You will understand why data pertaining to the interstellar visitor is being deliberately suppressed, and why certain scientific minds speculate that humanity itself might be part of an experiment predating recorded history. By the conclusion, you will grasp a singular truth that reshapes everything. The heavens may not simply be observing us, they might be responding. Before we delve deeper, please remember to show your appreciation by liking, subscribing, and activating the notification bell, but only if you truly find solace in calm scientific exploration that aids relaxation or sleep. As you listen, something extraordinary rests within the Colombian highlands. It is an object that challenges the very fabric of history and dismisses everything we believe we understand about human civilization. It is known as the Bugger Sphere. This metallic orb, unearthed near the locale of Bugger, gleams with a flawlessness that no ancient tool could have possibly achieved. Its smoothness is almost beyond belief, its roundness suggesting it was sculpted by pure geometry, and it is so substantial that it strains the might of those who have attempted to move it, yet it remains silent and watchful, akin to an eye sealed for eons. Those who first encountered it spoke of its unnatural equilibrium. It was a sphere that refused to tilt when nudged, an object so impeccably symmetrical that even contemporary aerospace engineers would find replication a formidable challenge. Beneath the intense Colombian sun, it remained untarnished. In the humid jungle environment, it showed no signs of corrosion. When touched by human hands, it revealed no joins or seams. It is a perfect sphere, unbroken, enduring, defying the very passage of time. Then came the assertion that set the world abuzz. 12,000 years. This is the figure circulating in online discussions, broadcast on late-night podcasts, and amplified in videos garnering millions of views. A carbon dating analysis, they contend, was performed on organic resin found in connection with the sphere, yielding results indicating an age exceeding 12,000 years. If accurate, this Bugger sphere predates Stonehenge, predates the pyramids, and even predates the inception of written language. Envision the world during that distant era. Glaciers still carved their paths across continents. Sea levels were considerably lower, exposing vast expanses of land now submerged. Humanity was dispersed in small nomadic groups, tending fires, fashioning rudimentary stone tools, and creating cave paintings. Yet, during that same epoch, someone, or something, manufactured a sphere from a polished alloy, adorned with markings that some interpret as symbols and others as intricate circuitry. The inherent contradiction is profound. Either our entire understanding of history is fundamentally flawed, or this artifact did not originate from human creation. Eyewitness accounts described more than just its physical peculiarities. Local farmers reported that the earth surrounding the sphere turned black, as if life itself recoiled from its presence. Explorers recounted how compasses spun erratically when brought near, their needles twitching like ensnared insects. Viral footage purportedly shows the sphere emitting a faint hum, a vibration resembling a living resonance when exposed to Sanskrit incantations. The authenticity of these videos remains unverified, but the imagery is captivating, and relic from the Ice Age seemingly responding to one of humanity's most ancient tongues. This is not the inaugural instance of such a sphere captivating the human psyche. In the year 1974, the Betts family unearthed a comparable metallic orb on their property in Florida. That sphere was reportedly capable of rolling uphill, emitting mechanical sounds during the night, and resisting all attempts to penetrate its surface. Military personnel confiscated it, researchers studied it, and then it vanished into obscurity, confined within facilities that subsequently refused to divulge any information. Now, half a century later, the Bugger sphere has surfaced, a second manifestation of the same profound mystery, but this time accompanied by a claim so audacious it shatters the barriers of skepticism. It is not of modern, nor medieval, nor even ancient origin in the conventional sense, but primordial, born in the dim light of the last ice age. Metals should not persist for such durations. Archaeologists are unequivocally aware of this fact. Bronze statues deteriorate in the open air after merely a few millennia. Iron swords from the Roman era corrode into dust unless meticulously preserved. Even the most skillfully forged alloys cannot withstand the ravages of 12 millennia unless the alloy itself is of an extraterrestrial composition or unless the sphere was specifically engineered for extreme longevity. If the claimed age is accurate, then the object was not only constructed by an unknown entity, but was also purposefully concealed, as if sown into the earth like a seed awaiting germination. The pertinent question is, why now? Why reveal itself at this precise juncture in human history? The enigma intensifies as we broaden our perspective to the cosmos. In July of the year 2025, just as the Bugger sphere is igniting global curiosity, astronomers detect a faint object entering our solar system. Initially, they classify it as a comet, a streak of ruddy light, barely discernible against the inky blackness, trailing gas, and particulate matter. Soon after, its orbital path is computed and the truth comes to light. The object does not originate from our solar system. Its trajectory is hyperbolic, an arc that neither a planet nor a star could maintain. It emerges from the interstellar void, from beyond the boundaries of our celestial neighborhood. It is designated oumuamua, the third confirmed interstellar visitor documented by science, following the renowned oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. This particular visitor, however, carries its own set of mysteries. Its spectral emission is a distinct red hue. Its atmospheric composition is predominantly carbon dioxide, present in proportions that deviate significantly from those typically observed in comets, and its dust scatters light in ways that elude our current predictive models. Some astronomers are privately suggesting that it might be older than the Sun, older than the Earth, perhaps even older than life itself. A cosmic traveler born when the galaxy was still in its infancy, traversing space for billions of years before intersecting our world. Coincidence, the rational voices assert. A meaningless convergence of events, a terrestrial relic and a celestial visitor, two narratives that do not intersect. Yet, the human mind is intrinsically wired to discern patterns. And here, the pattern is too compelling to dismiss. At the very moment we uncover a sphere that might be 12,000 years old, an interstellar traveler graces our skies. Two impossibilities, two enigmas arriving in the same historical moment. The seeds of conspiracy are sown from this point onward. What if the Bugger sphere is not merely an artifact, but a signaling device? What if it has awaited 12,000 years to activate upon the passage of a nearby signal? A signal carried by an extraterrestrial visitor? What if oumuamua is not a comet at all, but the messenger that the sphere was designed to receive? And if that hypothesis holds true, then we must confront a more unsettling question. What transpires when the two entities make contact? The sphere is far from silent in the collective consciousness. It has become the focal point of intense debate, an object of veneration for some, a target of ridicule for others, and a nexus of impenetrable secrecy for institutions tasked with its explanation. Officials issue carefully worded statements suggesting the possibility of elaborate hoaxes, of modern metallic replicas deliberately placed to mislead enthusiasts, and emphasizing the need for further investigation. However, every official denial seems to intensify the public's fascination, as the timing feels too perfect, too deliberate, and the narrative of the sphere aligns too precisely with ancient myths that speak of luminous globes descending from the heavens. Consider the mythological accounts from India, where texts describe vimanas, airborne spheres of fire and metal, vehicles used by deities and royalty. Reflect upon Ezekiel's vision of a wheel, a blazing mechanism in the sky encircled with eyes. Recall the orbs depicted in Sumerian cuneiform tablets, spheres carried by the Anunnaki, those enigmatic celestial beings who purportedly shaped human destiny. For centuries, these narratives have been relegated to the realm of metaphor and imagination. Yet, an artifact now rests in Colombia that appears less like a metaphor and more like a tangible memory. The very geometry of a sphere embodies symbolism, perfection without beginning or end, eternity encapsulated within its form. If a civilization intended to leave an unmistakable mark, something that could not be mistaken for random chance, something that humanity would invariably recognize as deliberate, they would fashion a sphere, perfect, incorruptible, and resistant to the erosion of time. It is a universal language, one that requires no translation, only recognition. During clear nights, observers in Colombia direct their gaze upward, witnessing a faint red traveler traversing the celestial expanse. Oumuamua drifts silently past the orbit of Jupiter, its tail subtly shimmering with reflected sunlight. Telescopes meticulously track its movement. Scientists publish data regarding its composition, its unusual ratio of carbon dioxide to water, and the way it scatters polarized light. They refer to it as a comet, yet with reservations, employing language that acknowledges its anomalous characteristics. The more it is studied, the less it resembles the comets we are familiar with, as if it bears a distinct signature from another region of the galaxy. On the same nights, gatherings occur near the bugger sphere, with hushed whispers suggesting its hum is intensifying, that local fauna avoids grazing nearby, and that electronic devices like mobile phones and radios experience static interference when brought close. While none of these phenomena are definitively proven, the stories proliferate, and their cumulative effect is undeniable. The object seems imbued with life, and when juxtaposed with the interstellar visitor, a compelling image forms in the collective imagination. An image that evokes both terror and fascination. The sphere, acting as a receiver, and the visitor, as the transmission, with humanity positioned as the audience. History has provided us with cautionary tales of such pivotal moments. Catastrophic floods, abrupt extinctions, and the collapse of civilizations that once thrived in the shadow of the Ice Age. All have left behind gaps that archaeology has yet to fully explain. What if these societal breakdowns were not natural occurrences? What if they served as crucial junctures in a grand experiment? Resets meticulously designed to assess humanity's resilience? If the sphere was deposited 12,000 years ago, it might have served as a marker for a cycle we are only now beginning to comprehend. A cycle that may be on the verge of repeating. Contemplate the profound implications. An artifact lying dormant beneath our feet for millennia. A traveler from another star system emerging in our skies. The two aligned in time, poised to engage in a dialogue across the vastness of space. The mere possibility of this scenario fundamentally alters our perception of history, transforming our species from an isolated accident into an active participant in a cosmic conversation. Yet, if it is indeed a dialogue, what is its subject matter? What is the intended message? What are the underlying intentions? At this juncture, the narrative takes a more somber turn, for communication implies consciousness, and consciousness implies intent. If the sphere functions as a beacon and oumuamua as a probe, then it follows that someone constructed them. Someone dispatched them. Someone continues to exist out there who initiated this experiment long ago. The question is not whether they exist, but whether they retained any memory of us and what expectations they hold for us after 12,000 years of silence. Official sources will maintain their denials for as long as conceivably possible, because acknowledging the connection would dismantle not only scientific certainty, but also the established structures of political authority. The existence of a sphere predating all known civilization, yet possessing advanced technology, would undermine entire academic disciplines, governmental bodies, and prevailing narratives of human progress. The appearance of an interstellar visitor exhibiting behavior far beyond that of a typical comet would shatter the illusion that Earth is unobserved, untouched, and secure. Denial offers a simpler path than revelation. However, denial cannot halt the inexorable advance of evidence. Visualize the moment of convergence. The sphere in Colombia resonating with an unseen energy. The interstellar object reaching its closest proximity to the Sun. A surge of energy, imperceptible to human senses, but meticulously recorded by instruments for which we are utterly unprepared to interpret. If this represents a signal, it may not manifest as words or images, but rather as a cascade of instructions. A key designed to unlock dormant functions within the sphere, functions that may have remained quiescent for 12 millennia. Right now, as these words reach you, oumuamua is venturing deeper into the solar system, its trajectory predetermined, its velocity unstoppable, its ancient memory intact. Simultaneously, the bugger sphere rests concealed beneath protective coverings and under guarded facilities, its hum a subject of debate, its enigmatic markings a source of speculation, its origins unacknowledged. Presently, humanity stands on the precipice of a revelation that could either elevate us to a state of communion with a civilization that transcends time or expose us as subjects within an experiment whose commencement we never even perceived. The choice is not ours. The timeline is not ours. The countdown has already commenced. The bugger sphere awaits. Oumuamua approaches, and the world collectively holds its breath. Part 2. The sphere that should not exist. The bugger sphere defies conventional understanding. It exists despite its apparent impossibility, and this very contradiction confounds every attempt at explanation. Archaeologists consistently remind us that 12,000 years ago, human populations lived in small, migratory groups, subsisting on hunting game and crafting tools from bone. They emphasize that agriculture had not yet emerged, that metallurgy was still millennia away, and that the concept of the wheel itself had not yet been conceived. Yet, we are confronted with an artifact that appears to have been manufactured with a precision akin to modern machining, as if it were retrieved from an aerospace assembly line and deposited into the ancient world. Examine its surface, smooth as solidified mercury, frozen in form, untouched by the passage of time, exhibiting no seams, no welds, no imperfections. This is demonstrably not the product of stone hammers or rudimentary furnaces. It represents engineering capabilities far surpassing even the Bronze Age, let alone the Stone Age. When light strikes its surface, it reflects with pristine clarity, free from pits, scratches, or any discernible grain. Metallurgists who have reviewed photographic evidence admit their inability to explain how such flawless perfection could have been achieved without the aid of advanced lathes and furnaces. Even then, the fundamental question persists. Why would anyone, 12,000 years ago, create such an object? And more critically, how could they have accomplished it? The claims regarding its age stem from carbon dating performed on organic resin found in association with the sphere. Reports indicate that the dating results place it at approximately 12,500 years old. Critics argue that resin can be a contaminant, that it might have been applied at a later time, and that the date may not accurately reflect the age of the metal itself. Nevertheless, the mere existence of these tests and the release of such figures are sufficient to ignite the imagination. Science cannot simply dismiss this anomaly outright, as the evidence is physical, present, and tangible. The sphere exists. It can be handled, it can be measured, and it stands apart from anything else within our established archaeological record. Consider for a moment the significance of 12,000 years in the context of human history. The Ice Age still held a firm grip on the northern hemisphere. Mammoths and giant ground sloths roamed the earth. The initial stirrings of agriculture were only just beginning in the Fertile Crescent. Civilizations as we understand them were still millennia in the future. Yet, during that same era, an individual or entity may have shaped and polished an alloy sphere to a degree of exactitude that even today, we find challenging to replicate. The contradiction is not minor, it is catastrophic. It creates a gaping hole in our comprehension of human development, forcing us to either accept the existence of a lost civilization possessing technology far beyond its time or to consider the possibility of external intervention. This is not the first time the narrative of anomalous artifacts has challenged our established timelines. Ancient maps, such as the Piri Reis chart, depict coastlines that should have remained unknown prior to the age of exploration. The Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a Greek shipwreck, revealed gears of such intricate precision that historians were compelled to acknowledge the ancients' understanding of mechanical computation. Out-of-place artifacts, or oumuamua, are scattered throughout the archaeological record, ranging from hammerheads discovered embedded in ancient stone to crystal skulls carved with impossible accuracy. Each instance is typically dismissed, explained away, or sequestered in museum vaults, but collectively, they form a discernible pattern, suggesting that our history may not be as linear or as straightforward as depicted in textbooks. The bugger sphere, however, represents a more radical anomaly than any of these. A crystal skull can be attributed to the skill of artisans. A bronze mechanism can be contextualized within the scope of Greek ingenuity. A seamless metallic orb dated to the dawn of the Holocene epoch cannot be so easily rationalized. To acknowledge its authenticity would necessitate a rewriting of everything from the narrative of early agriculture to the emergence of metalworking. And it is here that speculative theories begin to flourish. Some propose that the sphere is the sole surviving relic of a forgotten civilization eradicated by the catastrophic floods that marked the end of the Ice Age. They point to the ruins at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a 12,000-year-old temple complex that defies conventional historical timelines, yet demonstrably exists. They argue that ancient humans achieved a level of advancement far exceeding our current understanding, and that cataclysmic events subsequently erased their knowledge, leaving behind only fragmented remnants. In this view, the bugger sphere would be a survivor, a whisper from a bygone era extinguished by fire and flood. Others are less inclined to attribute such capabilities to early humans. They posit, instead, that the sphere is not of terrestrial origin, that it was intentionally placed, not by the hands of Stone Age hunters, but by visitors who arrived in vessels of light. Proponents of ancient astronaut theories often refer to it as a probe, a beacon, or a device engineered to endure until the era of advanced technology arrived, when we would finally be capable of recognizing its true nature. If this is the case, then the discovery of the bugger sphere is not a matter of chance, but a precisely timed event, a countdown that has reached its culmination. Regardless of the ultimate truth, the implications are monumental. If it is of human origin, then our ancestors possessed capabilities that surpass our wildest estimations, and their history has been deliberately obscured. If it is extraterrestrial, then Earth has been visited, monitored, and perhaps even seeded with life, and we are only now unearthing the evidence. In either scenario, the sphere transcends its status as a mere object. It represents a gateway, a profound question that cannot be ignored. And the deeper question lingers like an ominous shadow. If the sphere has patiently awaited discovery for 12,000 years, what else might lie buried, silently resting beneath our feet? To fully appreciate the magnitude of this enigma, consider the history of metallurgy itself. Copper smelting appears in the archaeological record around 8,000 years ago. Bronze production emerged slightly later. Iron became widely prevalent only within the last 3,000 years. Yet, the bugger sphere displays no indications of primitive casting or hammering techniques. If its composition is, as some preliminary reports suggest, an alloy of remarkable purity containing trace elements not found in the local geology, then we are dealing with metallurgy so advanced that it bypasses entire epochs of technological evolution. It is as if the creators transitioned directly from stone tools to aerospace-grade alloys, leaving no intermediate steps. Skeptics contend that the sphere is a deliberate fabrication, a modern creation planted for attention. However, these same skeptics offer no plausible explanation for the markings on its surface, symbols that appear to follow mathematical sequences rather than random inscriptions. Linguists who have examined photographs suggest that the patterns bear a resemblance to written scripts, yet no known alphabet corresponds to them. Electrical engineers note that the patterns resemble circuitry more than language, as if etched with the purpose of transmitting signals. Even if the markings were purely ornamental, their hypnotic geometry reinforces the notion that the sphere possesses a function beyond mere decoration. The question of its function presents the most perplexing riddle. What purpose does the sphere serve? Is it a container, hollow with something concealed within, perhaps technology yet to be activated? Is it a transmitter poised to awaken and dispatch a message? Is it a receiver tuned to signals that humanity is currently incapable of detecting? The anecdotal accounts of compasses spinning wildly, of hums responding to incidental sounds, and of electromagnetic interference all point towards interaction. The sphere is not passive, it is reactive, and this singular fact elevates it from a mere relic to a sophisticated device. If it is a device, then its creation must have been driven by intent. Devices are manufactured for specific purposes, as weapons, tools, probes, recording instruments, or seeds. The exact nature of the sphere's purpose remains unknown, and this uncertainty confounds every individual who studies it. Should this sphere be a weapon, it might possess a dormant capacity for destruction spanning 12,000 years. If it functions as a tool, it could harbor knowledge capable of propelling us into an era of unprecedented progress. If it's a probe, then our solitude is a falsehood, and we have never been alone. If it serves as a record, it may contain the forgotten histories of civilizations long past. If its purpose is that of a seed, then its unfolding may be imminent. Regardless of its true nature, this sphere does not exist in isolation. Across the globe, other enigmatic artifacts have ignited comparable discussions. Consider the dropper stones of China, circular artifacts inscribed with grooves, which some propose are chronicles of extraterrestrial visitors. Then there's the Baghdad Battery, a ceramic vessel containing copper and iron elements, theorized to have functioned as a rudimentary electrochemical cell. And the Nazca Lines, vast geoglyphs visible only from a lofty vantage point, their true purpose remaining a subject of ongoing debate. Each of these ancient items is subject to contention, argument, and often ridicule. Yet, none have been definitively disproven. Collectively, they construct a mosaic of anomalies, suggesting that our past is far more extraordinary than our history books portray. The Bugosphere, however, occupies a distinct category. Unlike carvings, ruins, or ambiguous inscriptions, it is a metallic object engineered with a precision that precludes any natural origin. Unlike other ancient mechanisms, it doesn't align with human historical timelines. It cannot be attributed to any known culture. It simply exists outside of recorded history, silent yet irrefutable. Its silence is its most potent characteristic. Silence in official documentation. Silence in academic publications. Silence in halls of power. The military observes but offers no comment. Academic institutions analyze but refrain from publishing. The media reports but quickly shifts its focus. Yet, within that silence, the sphere persists, emitting a faint hum, as if aware that patience is its greatest asset. 12,000 years have already elapsed. It can afford to wait a while longer. And as it patiently waits in the vast emptiness of space, an ancient voyager traces a path ever closer to the sun. The convergence of these events is too precise, too poetic, too unnerving. The discovery of an object that logically should not exist on Earth. The arrival of a celestial visitor that should not be present in our skies. Both unfolding within the same historical epoch. Whether of human or alien origin, whether a relic or a sophisticated device, the Bugosphere is not unique. Its counterpart, its associate, its emissary may already be among us, streaking through the cosmos, trailing a wake of gas and ice. This is the precipice where history begins to shift. Either the sphere will remain an enigma, a curiosity dismissed by scholars, or it will activate when the moment is opportune, when its celestial companion completes its voyage. Humanity has inadvertently stepped onto a stage far grander than it comprehends. A stage meticulously prepared long before we developed the capacity for language. And now, the curtain is beginning to rise. If the sphere is indeed 12,000 years old, then its placement here was intentional, implying someone anticipated its eventual discovery. If Atlas is more than a mere comet, then its arrival was orchestrated, suggesting it has been under observation. The narrative of the Bugger sphere transcends mere archaeology. It has become a story of destiny. And the question that looms like distant thunder on the horizon is straightforward. What will transpire when the sphere responds to the heavens? In July of the year 2025, a faint crimson point appeared on the monitors of astronomers at the Atlas Observatory in Chile. Initially, it was just another potential discovery, another speck among countless others that the telescope network meticulously scanned each night in its ongoing search for asteroids and comets. However, subsequent calculations revealed something extraordinary. Its orbital path did not close. It did not curve back towards the sun as the trajectories of known comets do. It did not fall within the collection of rocky and icy bodies belonging to our star. Its path was hyperbolic, a trajectory that could only signify one conclusion. The object had not originated within our solar system at all. It had journeyed from the stars. Its designation followed swiftly, 3I Atlas. This marked the third confirmed interstellar visitor, following Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. The first was an object of enigmatic form, resembling a shard, rotating in an unusual manner and accelerating as if propelled by an unseen force. The second presented a more familiar appearance, behaving like a comet, though exhibiting peculiar characteristics. The third, Atlas, arrived enveloped in a crimson glow and trailing a tail of gas that left scientists perplexed. For only the third instance in recorded history, humanity could state with absolute certainty that it was observing material from another solar system as it traversed our own. Atlas is not large by cosmic standards, perhaps a kilometer in diameter, perhaps even smaller. But its age is astonishing. Models suggest it may have drifted through the galaxy for billions of years, having been ejected from its parent system during the tumultuous period of planetary formation, traversing the void since before Earth had even taken shape. Some estimations place its age as exceeding that of our Sun, even predating the primordial dust that coalesced to form our planet. In essence, at the time Atlas was already adrift, Earth was merely an unformed concept within the galaxy's grand design. Observations conducted using the James Webb Space Telescope revealed a composition predominantly of carbon dioxide, accompanied by trace amounts of water, carbon monoxide, and other volatile substances. The ratio of carbon dioxide to water was notably unusual, far exceeding that observed in most comets we have studied. Its coma, the luminous gaseous halo surrounding it, shimmered in infrared light, displaying properties that did not align neatly with our established models. Under ultraviolet illumination, the emission of hydroxyl radicals indicated activity at distances where comets are typically quiescent. Even the manner in which its dust scattered light baffled astronomers, presenting a deep, narrow polarization curve that is rarely observed in comets within our solar system. While each anomaly might possess an individual explanation, collectively, they fostered an impression of something utterly foreign, something that transcended the designation of a mere comet, but rather represented a messenger operating under an entirely different set of physical laws. Its coloration was predominantly red, yet not uniform, displaying gradations across wavelengths that hinted at grain sizes and ice compositions unfamiliar to us. Its behavior appeared to fluctuate, as if its outer layers were composed of materials we did not anticipate. Even with the most advanced instruments humanity has ever constructed, Atlas remained an enigma, as though it held secrets meticulously shielded from our examination. The public, naturally, only received fragmented accounts of these findings. Headlines proclaimed it an alien visitor, a fragment of another world, a frozen relic from distant galaxies. Rumors propagated with far greater speed than verified data, and once again, a familiar pattern emerged. Just as scientists diligently pursued the study of Atlas, a wave of conspiracy theories began to coalesce around it. Was it truly a natural phenomenon, or was it artificial in origin? Could it be a probe, a vessel, a piece of technology designed to mimic a comet's appearance while serving a different function? This idea, though seemingly far-fetched, is not entirely without precedent. Avi Loeb, a renowned astrophysicist from Harvard, famously posited that Oumuamua, the first interstellar visitor, could have been an artificial probe, shaped thinly like a light sail propelled by radiation pressure. His perspective, though controversial, compelled the scientific community to seriously consider the possibility that interstellar objects might occasionally be more than mere celestial bodies. If oumuamua could be artificial, why not Atlas? This particular possibility is where the narrative intersects with the bugosphere. Because if Atlas is something more than a comet, if it is artificial, if it carries an intent, then its arrival at the precise moment the bugosphere is unearthed cannot be attributed to mere chance. The two mysteries begin to resonate with each other, one on Earth, the other in the celestial expanse, as though they are chapters within a single grand narrative. The sphere acts as the receiver, the orb in the heavens as the transmitter, and humanity finds itself caught in the crossfire of a conversation that commenced long before our existence. Envision gazing through a telescope at Atlas, its crimson luminescence shimmering, its gaseous exhalations forming a delicate veil across billions of kilometers. Imagine the profound realization that what you are observing is older than Earth itself. A survivor from a distant star, a wanderer bearing information from an alien stellar system. Now, juxtapose this with a sphere unearthed from the Colombian soil. A relic purported to be 12,000 years old, adorned with peculiar symbols, and emitting a faint hum reminiscent of ancient chants. One serves as evidence of the cosmos beyond our reach. The other as proof of something impossibly present within our grasp. Together, they are not random occurrences. They are deliberate. They are pieces of a puzzle deliberately left for us to assemble. The critical question is, what are we assembling it into? When the discovery was initially announced, the world paid little attention. News outlets offered it a cursory mention, framing it as just another comet, another icy mass, another scientific curiosity. However, behind the scenes, astronomers were wide awake, recognizing that Atlas was no ordinary comet. It was something profoundly more peculiar. Unlike Oumuamua, which passed by swiftly and silently, and unlike Borisov, which could be more readily categorized as a typical comet, Atlas presented a hybrid persona. It behaved like a comet, yet not entirely so, an imposter donning a disguise. The James Webb Space Telescope directed its powerful gaze towards it, meticulously peeling away layers of light across the infrared spectrum. What it uncovered was unsettling. The gases venting from Atlas did not conform to the neat classifications established through centuries of comet research. Its abundance of carbon dioxide, significantly outweighing its water content, inverted the standard ratio. This implied either that Atlas formed under conditions entirely alien to our solar system or that its composition was engineered for extreme resilience. In simpler terms, either alien geology or alien intent was at play. Ground-based telescopes added further layers of complexity. Its dust particles scattered light in ways that defied expectations, generating a sharp polarization signal that bore no resemblance to known comets. Some particles appeared excessively small, others excessively large, their distribution uneven, suggesting deliberate arrangement rather than random formation. Its coma emitted a faint red glow, yet the intensity of this redness varied across different wavelengths, producing colors inconsistent with typical cometary ice. The more intently scientists studied it, the more it eluded their grasp, refusing to fit any established model, resisting all attempts at definitive classification. Whispers began to circulate rapidly. Scientists daring to speculate suggested that Atlas might not be a natural celestial object at all, but rather a form of vessel disguised in ice and dust. A probe masquerading as a comet, a wanderer capable of slipping unnoticed into foreign planetary systems, gathering intelligence and transmitting data. This concept echoed Loeb's hypothesis regarding oumuamua, the possibility that interstellar space might be populated with technological debris, remnants of civilizations we have yet to encounter. If this sounds like science fiction, it is important to remember that for decades, humanity itself has harbored aspirations of achieving precisely this. Proposals for Bracewell probes, autonomous machines designed to be launched into the galaxy to await the detection of intelligent civilizations, have been circulating in scientific journals since the 1960s. These probes were envisioned not to return to Earth, but to remain within alien systems, observing, waiting, and perhaps even intervening. If we can conceive of such possibilities, why not others that are older, wiser, and far more advanced? Now, consider the timeline. 12,000 years ago, according to various accounts, the Bugosphere was deposited into the soil of Columbia. Concurrently, or perhaps much earlier, Atlas was already in transit, traversing the galaxy, awaiting an intersection with our path. And now, in the year 2025, these two enigmas surface simultaneously, as if an alarm has been triggered, as if a clock set millennia ago has finally struck its hour. The established scientific community attributes this to coincidence. The realm of conspiracy theories attributes it to design. And between these two opposing viewpoints stretches a vast expanse of uncertainty, a void that humanity invariably fills with its imagination. Picture what might happen next. Atlas continues its celestial arc, drawing ever closer to the inner solar system. With each passing day, its coma intensifies, its gaseous emissions become more vigorous, and its tail elongates. Instruments on Earth meticulously track its progress. But within those streams of gas, within those molecular ratios, could there lie information? Could patterns of emission represent deliberately encoded signals? To us, it appears as mere chemistry, but to another observer, it could be language. The bugger sphere, humming softly, vibrating at frequencies currently beyond our comprehension, could be the receiver, the missing component that completes the dialogue. Even more chilling is the possibility that Atlas is not silent at all. Radio telescopes have been used to scan interstellar objects previously, searching for unusual emissions. But what if its signals are not transmitted via radio waves, nor any frequency we currently monitor? What if the sphere itself is the sole antenna capable of receiving them? In that scenario, the connection would remain imperceptible to us, yet active, pulsing, alive. Consider also the symbolism. An orb buried within the earth. An orb drifting through the heavens. One in a state of dormancy within the soil. The other awake and active in the vastness of space. Both are spherical. Both hold profound mysteries. Both have entered our awareness at the same critical juncture. To dismiss this as mere coincidence is facile. However, to perceive it is something entirely different. It feels orchestrated, meticulously planned, designed to jolt us into awareness. As Atlas traverses the orbit of Mars, increasing in luminosity, the tension mounts palpably. Astronomers release further data. Yet, Each release is accompanied by qualifications, contradictions, and anomalies. Journalists begin to speculate openly, while online forums and podcasts erupt with a multitude of theories. Governments remain conspicuously silent, but rumors persist of military observatories dedicating an inordinate amount of resources to monitoring Atlas. If it is simply a comet, why the cloak of secrecy? Why the palpable urgency? Why the profound silence? Meanwhile, the sphere located in Colombia is no longer merely a local point of interest. It has become a heavily guarded artifact, now encircled by protective tarps, imposing fences, and individuals who offer no explanations. Some reports suggest it has been relocated to a secure facility. Others maintain it remains hidden in plain sight. Eyewitness accounts continue to emerge, detailing peculiar occurrences. Animals exhibiting signs of distress and avoidance, electronic devices malfunctioning, and vibrations that seem to pulse in synchronicity with something distant. Whether factual or fabricated, these accounts amplify the growing sense that the terrestrial orb and the interstellar visitor are not strangers, but kin. The pattern now appears undeniable. The two objects seem to mirror each other, one ancient yet entombed, the other ancient yet traversing the void, one discovered by chance, the other by deliberate design. The human mind instinctively leaps to the conclusion that they are intrinsically linked. And once this connection is established, it becomes irreversible. Every new piece of information pertaining to Atlas fuels speculation about the sphere, and every rumor concerning the sphere bleeds into interpretations of Atlas. Two enigmas orbiting each other, drawing humanity into their gravitational influence. As the weeks progress, the moment of closest proximity approaches, a countdown dictated by the inexorable precision of orbital mechanics. Atlas will sweep past the sun, flare brilliantly, and then drift away forever, unless some intervention occurs. The bugosphere will either remain inert or it will awaken. The possibility that the two are destined to interact grows increasingly intoxicating with each passing night. And here lies the critical juncture. What if the connection is not passive? What if Atlas is not merely here to pass by? What if its purpose is to activate the sphere, to rouse it, to initiate something that has been dormant for 12,000 years? The Earth may not simply be an observer of an interstellar visitor. The Earth may be on the verge of participating in a ritual conceived before humanity's very inception. Right now, the countdown continues. Atlas draws nearer. The sphere hums in its silence, and humanity is suspended in the space between them. Part 4. The signal and the sphere. The narrative no longer feels like two separate mysteries unfolding in parallel. It feels like a single thread intricately woven across time and space. A sphere concealed within the Earth, an orb wandering through the cosmos, both revealing themselves within the same historical period, both exhibiting anomalies that defy logical explanation. The human mind is inherently programmed to detect patterns. Yet, this particular pattern feels as though it has been deliberately placed, awaiting our discovery. The question is not whether they are connected, but how and for what ultimate purpose. Whispers begin within scientific circles, then propagate outwards to podcasts, late-night radio programs, and anonymous online forums. If the bug sphere dates back 12,000 years, and if Atlas is billions of years old, then it is conceivable that the sphere was left here specifically to be awakened by the passage of such a traveler. In this context, Atlas transcends being merely a comet. It becomes the trigger, the signal, the emissary carrying the spark that will activate a dormant device. This concept, while sounding like fiction, aligns with a chillingly logical progression. If a civilization wished to monitor a planet over extended periods, they could deposit an artifact on its surface and subsequently dispatch a roaming probe to pass by after millennia, transmitting data, initiating functions, or resetting experiments. This represents an extreme extrapolation of the Bracewell probe concept. A probe launched by one civilization patiently waits until it is in proximity to another world, at which point it transmits a message. But what if this message cannot be intercepted by human technology? What if it can only be received by a device already situated on that planet, calibrated to a frequency or communication method undetectable by our current means? The bugosphere could serve as that receiver, patiently awaiting in silence for 12,000 years until the day its celestial counterpart drifted close enough to whisper across the void. Reports begin to surface of anomalous readings emanating from Colombia. Amateur investigators claim to have detected spikes in electromagnetic noise in the vicinity of the sphere. These are described as unusual bursts that do not correlate with local interference. Local farmers report radios crackling at night, their broadcasts drowned out by static that pulses rhythmically, much like a heartbeat. Theories proliferate, suggesting that Atlas has already commenced its transmission and that the sphere has begun to respond. If these claims hold true, then we are not awaiting contact. We are already immersed in it, entirely unaware of the information being exchanged both above our heads and beneath our feet. Governments vehemently deny these assertions, but such denials only serve to intensify suspicion. Images of transport trucks, armed military personnel, and sealed hangars, purportedly leaked online, fuel the belief that the sphere has been transferred to a clandestine facility. Officials remain tight-lipped, but their silence speaks volumes, resonating louder than any statement. Why would a metallic sphere of no apparent significance be treated with such extreme security measures? Why would it vanish under armed escort? Why would scientists who were once vocal about it suddenly refuse to offer any commentary? The explanation offered by those who subscribe to conspiracy theories is straightforward, because they possess knowledge. They are aware that the sphere is not inert. They understand that the connection is genuine, and they recognize that the implications are far too perilous to disclose. Concurrently, Atlas continues to brighten in the night sky. Its tail lengthens, its spectral characteristics shift, and astronomers quietly concede that it continues to defy all established models. Some reference the sublimation of exotic ices, while others point to dust particles that reflect light in unprecedented ways. Yet, in hushed tones, a few admit the possibility that they are observing more than mere geology, that they are witnessing technology disguised as geological phenomena. The comet is not simply combusting. It is transmitting every subtle shift in light as a symbolic gesture, every molecular ratio as a coded message. If this hypothesis is accurate, then the bug sphere may currently be in the process of decoding it. What data it contains, what instructions it holds, remains entirely unknown to us. But the human imagination races ahead. The sphere could activate ancient machinery, possibly concealed deep underground. It could unlock knowledge encoded in mathematical principles predating our species. It could even emit its own signals, reaching not only Atlas but extending further into the darkness, towards other entities awaiting contact. It is conceivable that humanity is already integrated into a network we do not comprehend, a network that has existed since before we mastered the art of writing. The true terror lies not solely in the potential for communication, but in the inherent possibility of intent. Communication inherently implies a purpose. If the sphere was deliberately placed to observe, then who is the observer? If it was placed to guide, then what is the intended destination? If it was placed to conduct a test, then what are the criteria for success or failure? A looming countdown casts a shadow over every theory. 12,000 years of profound silence, and now, abruptly, activity. Why now? And what will follow? Imagine a signal passing invisibly through the air. A transmission too subtle for human instruments, too alien for our receivers, yet perfectly attuned to the bugger sphere. Imagine the orb absorbing this information, storing it, transforming it, and patiently awaiting the moment it is fully saturated. What would transpire then? Could it unfurl like a ripening fruit, unveiling secrets stashed away since the dawn of the Great Freeze? Might it project visions, a proclamation from its makers? Or would it simply maintain its stillness, yet alter the fundamental forces surrounding it, reshaping our very planet? The parallels are too striking to dismiss. And there, in the firmament, the celestial body and the terrestrial artifact, both radiating, both crimson and metallic, both exuding an air of immeasurable antiquity. Together, they form a linked pair, a conduit, a conversation. And if this is a discourse, then we are not its instigators, we are its audience. The dialogue has been ongoing for eons beyond our comprehension, and only now are we privy to it. The precipice looms. Atlas is poised to reach its perihelion, its closest celestial embrace of the sun, the very point where its radiance will peak, where any transmitted message would possess its greatest potency. The enigmatic bugosphere, cloaked in profound secrecy, lies dormant, a coiled spring of anticipation. What transpires when the interstellar voyager achieves its zenith of brilliance? What occurs when the energy surges? What happens when the sphere reacts? The chronicle is inscribed among the stars, and the final communique is yet to be dispatched. The closer we examine, the more. The connections appear primordial, as if our species had previously witnessed this very phenomenon, though seen through the hazy lens of legend. The ancient Sumerians etched cuneiform tablets, describing the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens bearing orbs of luminescence. The Mayan codices recount tales of incandescent spheres that dictated calendrical systems, shaping temporal cycles. The biblical book of Ezekiel portrays a celestial chariot, a wheel within a wheel, adorned with eyes and emitting a sound like a torrent of water. Each of these narratives has, for ages, been interpreted as visions, allegories, flights of fancy. Yet, when juxtaposed with the Bugosphere and Atlas, they begin to resonate less as myths and more as recollections. Perhaps our ancestral humans observed this cosmic cycle long ago and, lacking the means to articulate it, immortalized it through symbols of deities and celestial fire. If this supposition holds, then the Bugosphere might not be an isolated entity. What if others lie hidden in arid expanses, interred beneath polar ice, resting on the ocean floor? What if our own planet has been sown with such apparatuses, each a nexus point in a planetary web, designed to awaken solely when the heavens convey the precise stimulus? The very notion sends a shiver down the spine, for it implies we may have discovered merely the vanguard, while countless others lie dormant beneath our feet, awaiting their cue. Scholars, constrained by their established frameworks, cannot voice such speculations publicly. However, in private discourse, some confess their disquiet. The atmospheric composition venting from Atlas is unconventionally anomalous. The polarization of its light is exceptionally distinct. The sustained nature of its activity is profoundly peculiar. They can rationalize each oddity with contorted hypotheses, but collectively, the object defies straightforward geological classification. Some surmise in hushed tones that they are observing sophisticated engineering, not natural phenomena, and that to acknowledge this would fundamentally alter our understanding of reality. Governments, meanwhile, maintain an impenetrable silence. The artifact, unearthed in Colombia, is under stringent guard, sealed away, with no official disclosures permitted. Yet, overhead satellite imagery reveals unusual movements. Convoys operating under the cloak of darkness, aerial transports ferrying sealed containers away from the dense jungle. The official pretext is flimsy, the truth palpable. Someone is making preparations, someone is conducting tests, someone is awaiting the appointed moment of celestial alignment, and the public, left with scant evidence and pervasive rumors, begins to construct its own interpretations. Online forums buzz with claims that shortwave radio frequencies have been exhibiting fluctuations that mimic encoded communications. Amateur radio enthusiasts report sudden bursts of static coinciding with Atlas's increasing luminosity in the sky. Some posit that these surges correlate with spikes in electromagnetic interference emanating from Colombia. None of this is definitively proven, but once the pattern is perceived, it cannot be disregarded. The signal is present. The receiver is active. The exchange is underway. What remains enigmatic is the message's intent. Is it a salutation, a cautionary note, a directive, or an imperative? Is the sphere merely observing, or is it actively responding? If it is responding, then to whom? To Atlas, or to something far more distant? Observing from a vantage point beyond our imagination, the eve of perihelion draws ever nearer. Astronomers are disseminating schedules, dates, and charts detailing its projected brightness. To them, it represents a scientific opportunity, a chance to scrutinize an interstellar entity at its peak activity. To those who perceive the interconnectedness, it signifies something far more profound. It is the moment the dialogue will reach its crescendo, the moment the signal will attain its greatest strength, the moment the sphere may finally stir from its slumber. And then arises the thought that no one wishes to articulate. What if awakening is not benign? What if the sphere was positioned not to enlighten us, but to subjugate us, to pass judgment upon us, to recalibrate our existence? What if the past 12,000 years have constituted a trial, and the signal marks the moment the exam is graded? Civilizations preceding ours may have faltered, swept away by deluges and infernos, their remnants buried. We could be next, unless we prove ourselves prepared. At this very instant, Earth revolves beneath the celestial bodies. At this very instant, the enigmatic object glows faintly in the vast emptiness. At this very instant, the sphere rests in silence, guarded yet restless. The connection may already be active, undetectable by our instruments, inaudible to our senses, yet blazing with absolute clarity to mechanisms not of our creation. When the signal reaches its peak, something will shift, regardless of our readiness, regardless of our comprehension. The discourse will persist, and the sphere will provide its response. Part 5. Echoes of an Ancient World. If the Bugosphere is indeed real, and its age is as claimed, then it predates our current epoch. It belongs to a world that has been erased from memory. That world was not characterized by digital devices and orbiting satellites, nor by bronze and iron implements. It was a world poised precipitously between the waning of the Ice Age and the inception of organized societies. A world where colossal glaciers still loomed on the horizon, where sea levels were lower, revealing vast coastlines that now lie submerged beneath turbulent oceans. It was a world where the seeds of myths were sown, legends that speak of cataclysmic events and deities descending from the heavens. 12,000 years ago marked the Younger Dryas, a period of abrupt and violent climatic upheaval. Something impacted our planet, perhaps fragments of a comet, perhaps forces we are still unable to comprehend, and the world plunged into a renewed freeze after a period of warming. Species vanished, landscapes were irrevocably altered, seas rose, and immense floods inundated coastlines. It was a cataclysm, etched into collective memory, passed down through generations, as tales of celestial fire and engulfing waters that swallowed cities whole. Nearly every ancient civilization bears witness to it. The Sumerians recounted tales of a figure named Zeusidra, who survived a deluge orchestrated by the gods. The Hebrews spoke of Noah, the Mesopotamians of Utnapishtim, and the ancient peoples of the Indus Valley described waters that reshaped the world. If the bug sphere was deposited during that epoch, then perhaps its purpose was to endure that cataclysm, a dormant seed awaiting germination while ice and fire ravaged the earth. When humanity re-emerged, diminished, scattered, stripped of any advanced knowledge it might have once possessed, the sphere remains silent and patient. That is why it gleams untarnished today. It was engineered to withstand the cyclical destructions that obliterate civilizations. Vestiges of that lost world are still discernible in modern-day Turkey. Göbekli Tepe rises from the earth, a temple complex dating back 12,000 years, constructed with megalithic pillars, adorned with intricate carvings that no mere hunter-gatherer societies should have been capable of producing. It appears, abruptly, without any discernible precursors, as if knowledge materialized from an unknown source. Scholars engage in endless debate, but the most straightforward explanation is that it represents a remnant of something far more ancient, a flicker of memory from a vanished people. Plato spoke of Atlantis, a civilization annihilated in a single day and night of disaster, consumed by the sea. Though often dismissed as myth, emerging evidence of massive prehistoric floods and submerged ruins suggests the narrative might possess a kernel of truth. The reverberations of these ancient events ripple through every culture. The Vedas of India describe Vimanas, aerial craft shaped like spheres and discs, wielding weapons that blazed like suns. The Dogon people of Africa recount stories of knowledge imparted to them by beings from the star Sirius. The ancient Egyptians spoke of Zep Tepi, the first time when divine beings ruled before the advent of humankind. Even the Bible describes the sons of God descending to earth and taking wives among mortal women, begetting giants. These are not isolated myths. They form a chorus of distorted yet insistent memories, all pointing towards encounters with entities not entirely human. If we interpret these myths as historical accounts, rather than mere fantasy, then a clear pattern emerges. Visitors arrived, bestowing knowledge, causing devastation, and leaving behind artifacts. The Bugosphere could be one such artifact, deposited as a marker of a past encounter. An atlas, traversing the cosmos, might be the herald of the next. The legends of gods descending in fire could well have been descriptions of interstellar probes flaring within Earth's atmosphere. communicating with their terrestrial receivers. Our ancestors lacked the lexicon of science. Thus, they cloaked these events in the language of divinity. What we identify as a probe, they termed a god. What we perceive as a transmission, they interpreted as a divine command. Consider the possibility that humanity has already navigated this cycle more than once. The Younger Dryas event might have been one such trial. Atlantis could have been one of its casualties. Göbekli might have been one of its survivors. Now, 12,000 years hence, the cycle repeats. The sphere awakens. The heavens dispatch their messenger. And humanity once again finds itself confronting the same enigmatic question. Will we be deemed worthy of contact? Or will we face a reset, just like those who came before us? The weight of that possibility is almost unbearable. We have become accustomed to viewing ourselves as the zenith of human history, the most advanced species, the culmination of a prolonged ascent. Yet what if we are not the first? What if others ascended before us, only to succumb, their memories fossilized into myths, their technologies interred beneath the oceans, their artifacts left as silent testaments? The bug sphere could serve as the irrefutable proof, the smoking gun, demonstrating that we are not unique, not original, not alone. The deeper terror lies in this. If this cycle has transpired previously, then the sphere is not merely an ancient relic. It is an integral component of a recurring pattern. It might not be here for us, but for those who placed it, for those who dispatched Atlas, for those who continue to await us from an unimaginable distance. At this very moment, humanity might be reenacting a narrative already written, a story our ancestors endeavored to caution us about through myth and monumental structures, a story we disregarded until the evidence resurfaced from the soil and descended anew from the celestial expanse. The echoes of an older world are no longer mere whispers. They are thunderous pronouncements resonating across time. The past is returning, and with it comes a reckoning we may not survive. The more we scrutinize global mythology, the more the recurrence appears deliberate, as if disparate cultures across continents were chronicling the same recollection in varying dialects. The Hopi speak of previous worlds, annihilated in succession until ours emerged as the fourth, a fragile and transient era. The Norse recount Ragnarok, cycles of annihilation and renewal woven into the fabric of time. The Aztecs believed in epics that arose and subsequently fell, each age concluding in cataclysm, each new epic signifying a reset. These narratives are not simply moralistic fables. They are survival guides encoded in metaphor, warning future generations that the world has been reset before and can be reset again. Geology offers a corroborating warning. Layers of black sediment, rich in platinum and nanodiamonds, appear across continents. These are indicative of the Younger Dryas impact theory, evidence of a cosmic strike 12,000 years ago that dramatically altered Earth's climate. Pulses of meltwater from collapsing ice sheets elevated sea levels by hundreds of feet, submerging coastal settlements and obliterating entire cultures. Archaeology grapples with explaining the sudden extinction of megafauna, the abrupt cessation of thriving human communities, and the simultaneous emergence of mythical flood narratives across the globe. Science and myth converge, pointing to a catastrophe remembered in every language. If the bug sphere is authentic, then it integrates seamlessly into this paradigm. It is the survivor, the artifact that withstood fire, ice, and flood, patiently awaiting the day we would unearth it. Its flawless construction was not merely advanced. It was purposeful, designed to endure the very forces that annihilated everything else. That resilience is a message in itself. Whoever placed it understood that Earth would undergo transformations, that new seas would emerge, that new civilizations would collapse. Yet, they intended for the sphere to persist, implying they intended for us to discover it. The concept is astounding. Imagine civilizations predating ours that achieved pinnacles of development we cannot yet conceive, constructing monuments now submerged beneath the waves, developing technologies now decayed, leaving behind only markers like this. Imagine that the myths of gods were garbled accounts of those who guided, perhaps even manipulated, the trajectory of human evolution. Imagine that our ascent to modernity has not been an independent journey, but one under supervision, gently guided, corrected when it faltered. The bugosphere transitions from being merely an artifact to being a signature. A posthumous note left by an architect who anticipated our awakening, who knew we would eventually reach a stage where we could recognize it. The myths are not phantasms. They are echoes of encounters with these architects, encounters that shaped our very identity. And now, as Atlas drifts across our sky, the cycle repeats, posing a final, pressing question at the heart of Part 5. If civilizations before us encountered the same pattern and did not survive, then what destiny awaits us now? Are we the next to be judged, the next to be reset, the next to be remembered solely as legend by a future species? Or are we the first to be prepared, the first to step through the gateway the architects left ajar? At this very moment, the echoes grow more insistent. The sphere gleams in clandestine concealment. Atlas intensifies its luminescence. In the sky, and the myths of antiquity feel less like stories and more like ominous warnings. The ancient world has communicated, but its message remains obscure. The sole certainty is that the cycle has recommenced, and this time, we are intrinsically involved. The past has not concluded its dealings with us. It is calling back through the earth and through the stars, and soon, we will perceive its voice. Part 6. The Architects of Silence. The quietude surrounding the bugosphere and Atlas might not signify absence, but rather deliberate intent. Silence can possess greater potency than clamor. Silence can be the strategy of observers who wish to remain undetected until the propitious moment. Silence can represent the immensity of a civilization so far advanced that our entreaties and inquiries amount to mere whispers lost in a tempest. If the bugosphere functions as a receiver and Atlas as a messenger, then the architects behind them are not human and perhaps not even proximal. They are ancient, predating the pyramids, predating humanity, perhaps even predating our sun. They represent a civilization that dispersed devices across the galaxy, concealed within soil, submerged in oceans, resting on lunar bodies, awaiting activation in silent anticipation. The bugosphere might not be an isolated marvel. It could simply be our node within a vast network, one of innumerable silent stations scattered across myriad living worlds. Envision such a civilization. While our species was crafting implements from stone, they were constructing mechanisms designed to endure for billions of years. While we grappled with harnessing fire, they were dispersing probes disguised as comets, probes capable of traversing the stars and transmitting signals to concealed receivers. They would have no need for continuous physical presence. Their requirement would be to establish cyclical patterns, resets, and moments of interaction. They could withdraw for millennia, confident that their devices would endure. In astronomical parlance, we would classify them as Type 3 civilizations, societies possessing the capacity to harness the energy of entire galaxies. In the realm of conspiracy, we might label them as gods. But deities are merely civilizations so advanced that their scientific achievements appear as magic to our limited understanding. Arthur C. Clarke aptly stated, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." The bugosphere represents our inaugural encounter with this indistinguishable phenomenon. What purpose would such architects serve? Some propose curiosity, an insatiable yearning to observe the proliferation of intelligence across the cosmos. Others suggest oversight, a gardener's prudent intervention, culling species that develop too rapidly or deviate from a prescribed path. A more somber perspective posits exploitation, harvesting planets not for communicative purposes, but for resources, energy, or genetic material. If this is the case, then silence is not benevolent, it is predatory. The architects would abstain from revealing themselves, for prey should never glimpse the hunter's gaze. There is precedent within our own behavior. When we study fauna, we often do so covertly, observing without intervention, equipping them with devices that transmit data, subtly altering their environments to gauge their responses. What if humanity is subjected to the same methodology? The bugosphere serves as the tag, Atlas as the check-in, and we are the subject of the experiment. Nevertheless, silence can also serve a protective function. A civilization aware of the inherent dangers of the galaxy might opt for concealment, leaving behind only silent devices to monitor worlds. They would refrain from broadcasting loudly, preferring to whisper encoded messages. They would await the maturation of species before initiating direct contact. In this scenario, the bug sphere is less a trap and more a message in a bottle, evidence that we are not alone, intended to activate only when we possess the capacity for comprehension. But do we? Humanity is fragmented, distracted, engaged in internal conflict while the cosmos draws nearer. Perhaps the architects foresaw this very predicament. Perhaps this is an integral part of the test. Can we achieve unity under duress? Can we decipher signals without succumbing to internal strife? Can we confront a truth that destabilizes deeply held religious and governmental structures? The silence intensifies when we consider what governments might already be privy to. Whispers suggest that military intelligence agencies have previously investigated objects akin to the bug sphere. That crash retrieval operations have yielded technology far surpassing human ingenuity. If this is true, then the architects may have already been acknowledged in clandestine circles. Perhaps agreements were reached. Perhaps warnings were received. Perhaps communication has even occurred, concealed from public knowledge. Beneath layers of secrecy, Atlas, however, cannot be hidden. Its trajectory is charted across the heavens for all to observe. When it flares, when it approaches its closest point to the sun, the entire world will bear witness. This inherent visibility renders the prevailing silence even more suspect. If it were merely a comet, why the guarded information? Why the downplaying of anomalies? Why the classification as a security concern? The architects may remain silent, but their design speaks volumes. It communicates now through the confluence of discovery, through the anomalies that defy explanation, through the weight of myths that resonate across diverse cultures. The bugosphere is not an isolated enigma. It is a component of a structure so vast it spans both time and galaxies. We are only now beginning to discern its outline. The apprehension stems not merely from the existence of the architects, but from the possibility that they are not solitary. If one civilization can disperse silent devices across the cosmos, then surely others can as well. What if the sphere and Atlas are not the products of benevolent observers, but of competing factions, rival architects whose games unfold on worlds like ours? Humanity could be ensnared in a conflict that predates Earth itself, a struggle beyond our perception, a struggle in which we are merely pawns. The silence then assumes an even more ominous character, not the silence of patient anticipation, but the silence of warfare, a conflict waged in shadows across galaxies with devices like the bugosphere serving as markers, receivers, weapons, or progenitors. If this is the truth, then the question is not whether we will achieve contact, but whether we will survive it. At this very moment, the silence persists. The sphere hums faintly in guarded secrecy. Atlas glows faintly in the night sky, and humanity remains oblivious beneath the immense significance of an ancient design. The architects have not spoken, but their creations have already done so. The next move is not ours. If the architects exist, then Earth itself may already function as their repository. The accounts of celestial beings descending might have been nothing more than scheduled arrivals, surveys conducted by advanced craft that slipped into and out of our atmosphere. Their presence interpreted by awestruck observers as tales of fiery chariots and celestial thunder. Myths of a global deluge could represent deliberate purges, catastrophic events intentionally initiated to eradicate societies that failed to meet certain criteria. Even the abrupt surges in technological advancement throughout our recorded history may not be coincidental occurrences, but rather deliberate introductions of knowledge at junctures chosen by unseen observers. Consider the peculiar leaps in development that defy a gradual evolutionary progression. Göbekli Tepe emerges with no discernible predecessors, as if the concept of monumental construction materialized from an unknown source. The Sumerians developed writing, celestial observation, and intricate legal systems seemingly instantaneously, as if their knowledge was bestowed in its entirety. The Great Pyramids of Egypt stand with a precision and alignment that continue to spark debate. Subsequently, periods of regression follow, dark ages where advancement stagnates, as though the designers withdrew, observing in silence until conditions were once again favorable. This silence is not indicative of absence. It signifies deliberate orchestration. The designers may not communicate verbally because their instruments already convey their messages, The metallic sphere might contain directives not intended for us, but for other mechanisms concealed elsewhere. When Atlas draws near, it could transmit an activation sequence, awakening those dormant devices and linking them into a collective network. To human perception, the world appears unchanged. However, beneath the surface, deep within mountain ranges and concealed beneath the ocean depths, a mechanical awakening is occurring. If such a network is in place, then humanity has never existed in isolation, has never possessed true autonomy, and has never been the ultimate arbiter of its destiny. We might be a settlement under quiet surveillance, nurtured within a regulated environment, guided along paths imperceptible to us. The legends of gods would then represent narratives of overseers, caretakers, or even scientific investigators whose reticence serves as the most potent evidence of their dominion. This revelation instills profound apprehension in those who perceive it. If the sphere is indeed a receiving apparatus, then the transmission of data has already commenced. It could be information concerning our planet, measurements of atmospheric conditions, demographic tallies, records of conflict and amity, relayed across the vastness of space. Alternatively, it might be encoded instructions in a language beyond our comprehension, imparting functions to the sphere that could alter the equilibrium of our world. The quietude conceals not emptiness, but communication, not a void, but a presence, not ignorance, but intelligent design. And then there exists the possibility that sends a chill down the spine. The designers might not be benevolent, nor merely curious, nor even indifferent. They could be predators, employing silence as a form of camouflage, utilizing spheres as decoys, and employing comets as their conveyance. We might not be the recipients of their communication. We could be the prey. The ancient tales of offerings, of humans presented to deities, might not be metaphorical at all, but rather faint echoes of cyclical culling from eras long lost to memory. The silence would then be the silence of the hunter, lurking in the shadows, awaiting the opportune moment to strike. Yet, hope perseveres with unwavering tenacity. If the designers are cultivators rather than hunters, then perhaps the sphere is not a snare, but a key to insights that will propel us forward, a key to converse with civilizations far older and wiser than we can possibly imagine. If we can demonstrate our worthiness, if we can surmount the challenges presented, then the silence may finally yield to sound. The designers may reveal themselves not as annihilators, but as instructors. Humanity may yet ascend to the cosmic arena. At this very moment, the balance hangs unseen. The sphere in Columbia vibrates with its hidden significance. Atlas shines with increased brilliance in the firmament, and the silence of the designers grows more profound with each passing day. Whether this silence harbors salvation or ultimate annihilation remains beyond our present comprehension. The world looks to scientific principles for assurance, for the solace derived from mathematical expressions and models that account for the disarray of the unknown. However, scientific understanding is only as robust as the information it is founded upon. And when the data itself resists coherence, the established order begins to fracture. This is precisely the predicament confronting the enigma of the bug sphere and the celestial body known as three-eyed Atlas. The officially sanctioned explanations falter the more rigorously they are scrutinized, leaving behind inconsistencies that no scholarly review can rectify. Archaeologists contend that a flawless metallic orb cannot possess a provenance of 12,000 years. They assert that the metallurgical sophistication required for its creation is exclusively a product of the modern era. They propose the notions of fabrication, mistaken identification, or contemporary contamination. Nevertheless, they are unable to account for the resin subjected to testing at the University of Georgia's isotope laboratory, carbon dated to the conclusion of the last glacial period. They cannot explain the accounts of witnesses describing the erratic spinning of compass needles, the sterility of surrounding soil, or vibrations that resonate in response to audible frequencies. They dismiss these assertions, yet dismissal does not constitute an explanation. The artifact persists, tangible and recalcitrant, refusing to be dissolved into mere theory. Astronomers encounter a comparable unraveling with Atlas. They categorize it as a comet, yet its behavior deviates from that of known comets. Its outer envelope erupts with carbon dioxide at distances where water ice should be the dominant component. Its polarization signature is sharper than any previously observed within our solar system. Its coloration does not align with the expected spectral patterns of ice and dust. Each discrepancy can be rationalized with a degree of flexibility. They invoke the presence of exotic ices, unusual particle distributions, or rare environmental conditions. However, when these anomalies are considered collectively, they strain credulity. The object resists categorization within the established frameworks that science endeavors to impose upon it. When scientific inquiry reaches its limits, the ensuing void is not left unoccupied. It becomes filled with conjecture. Theories concerning ancient extraterrestrial intelligences surge into public discourse. Online discussions and forums resonate with claims suggesting a deliberate connection between the sphere and Atlas. Governmental bodies, rather than dispelling these rumors with transparent data, intensify their secrecy, thereby fueling further suspicion. Why would a harmless metallic sphere be surrounded by armed personnel? Why restrict access to an object that should be readily disproven? Why dedicate sophisticated military observatories to the surveillance of a comet that should pose no threat? The inconsistencies multiply. Leaked documents suggest clandestine meetings linking the artifact with the interstellar visitor. Anonymous sources hint at energy phenomena that have not yet been disclosed to the public. When questioned, officials retreat into silence, citing ignorance or matters of national security. This very refusal to engage becomes indirect evidence of concealment. The populace begins to fragment. One faction adheres rigidly to scientific orthodoxy, maintaining that all anomalies possess natural explanations, that the sphere is an elaborate modern fabrication, and that Atlas is merely an unusual but naturally occurring comet. The opposing faction perceives conspiracy in every instance of silence, confirmation in every denial, and proof in every rumor. The schism widens, exacerbated by the awareness that both perspectives cannot simultaneously be correct and that the ultimate truth, regardless of its nature, will fundamentally alter our understanding of reality. Scientific advancement thrives on reproducibility, on the capacity for measurement, experimentation, and validation. However, the bug sphere is maintained under strict security, inaccessible and shielded from independent examination. Atlas traverses the night sky. Yet, access to high-resolution observational data is confined to a select few premier observatories. In both scenarios, the restriction of information flow prevents science from functioning optimally. Without open access, the void expands, and the disintegration accelerates. And within this breakdown, more ominous theories begin to surface. Some speculate that the bug sphere is not an isolated instance, but that governments have discovered similar artifacts in deserts, mountain ranges, and the depths of oceanic trenches. Others propose that Atlas is not the inaugural interstellar probe to transit our vicinity, but merely the first whose presence has been publicly acknowledged. Some even suggest that oumuamua, a previously detected interstellar object, was intercepted, diverted, or possibly even apprehended, its secrets subsequently withheld from the world. Each rumor adds fuel to the fire, and each contradiction exacerbates the collapse. This is the point at which scientific understanding contorts into something it was never intended to be. Instead of providing clarity, it transforms into a performance, a stage upon which officials manipulate narratives to maintain control. The truth concerning the artifact and the truth regarding the comet are both too perilous to disclose, yet too evident to disregard. The more tenaciously the narrative is controlled, the more forcefully it infiltrates through the fissures. Currently, the inconsistencies are accumulating at an unprecedented rate. An artifact that science asserts cannot exist, yet demonstrably does. A comet that deviates from predictable behavior. Governments that should offer clarity, yet choose to conceal. Scientific principles that should provide explanations, yet falter under scrutiny. This disintegration is no longer a theoretical possibility. It is the current reality. The established framework of certainty is disintegrating. And amidst its ruin, something ancient, more perplexing, and considerably more perilous is taking shape. The fissures in the edifice of certainty commence as hairline cracks, virtually undetectable. Yet, once perceived, they become impossible to ignore. The bug sphere should have been summarily dismissed within a matter of days. Experts should have come forward, subjected it to public examination, and demonstrated to the world that it was either an ingenious deception or a modern fabrication. This is how scientific principles ought to operate, under conditions of transparency. However, that transparency never materialized. Instead, the artifact was sequestered behind security perimeters. Access was curtailed, and only fragmented pieces of information were disseminated, often through whispers and leaked disclosures. Such secrecy is detrimental to scientific integrity and corrosive to public trust. The longer the silence persisted, the more potent the accompanying narrative became, and the more challenging it proved to contain. Scientists asserted with unwavering conviction that the sphere could not possibly be 12,000 years old, maintaining that no civilization from that epoch possessed the metallurgical capabilities to produce such flawless craftsmanship. However, subsequent rumors emerged concerning carbon dating, specifically of resin adhering to the sphere, analyzed by reputable laboratories. These tests yielded results pointing back to the Younger Dryas period, a tumultuous era of climatic upheaval during which civilizations might have been submerged. Scientists countered that the resin could be compromised by contamination, and that the test provided no conclusive evidence regarding the composition of the metal itself. Yet, this contradiction proved to be fatal, because once numerical data exists and circulates, mere silence is no longer a sufficient response. Individuals began to pose the self-evident question: if the test results were inconsequential, why was a similar analysis not conducted openly? Why was the assertion not publicly disproven under daylight? The refusal to do so appeared less like a precautionary measure and more like an indication of fear. Astronomy encountered a parallel upheaval with the celestial object known as Three-Eyed Atlas. Initial observations led astronomers to classify it as a comet, but comets adhere to established physical laws, and Atlas demonstrably violated them. Its gaseous envelope expanded at a considerable distance from the Sun, propelled not by water ice, but by a predominant presence of carbon dioxide, a composition that seemed anomalous when compared to the comets originating from our solar system. Its polarization signal was notably sharper and more peculiar, diverging from the predictable curves observed in celestial bodies within our system. Its spectral analysis shifted in ways that suggested unfamiliar chemical properties. Individually, each anomaly could be explained away through extrapolation. Scientists modified existing models, posited the existence of exotic ices, unusual formation processes, and unique particulate matter. However, when these discrepancies were considered collectively, they painted a picture of an object that resolutely refused to conform to expectations. The classification of Atlas as a comet began to resemble a disguise, a superficial alteration adopted to preserve the comfort of conventional astronomical categories. When scientific inquiry is unable to provide an explanation, it typically acknowledges its limitations. This humility is a cornerstone of its strength. However, in this instance, such humility was notably absent. Instead of admitting their lack of knowledge, officials cloaked their silence in an aura of authority, presenting Atlas as an ordinary celestial body and dismissing the bug sphere as inconsequential, despite their own data contradicting these pronouncements. This refusal to acknowledge the inherent mystery served as the catalyst that ignited the flames of conspiracy, and conspiracy propagates with far greater rapidity than verifiable data. Within mere weeks, online forums became inundated with theories positing a connection between the bug sphere and Atlas. Podcasts began to circulate, suggesting the sphere functioned as a receiver and Atlas as its transmitter. Anonymous sources within government circles claimed that unusual energy signatures had already been detected in Colombia. Grainy video footage emerged, depicting armed guards escorting covered containers, trucks traversing remote jungle routes under the cover of darkness, and helicopters transporting crates. Each piece of evidence might have been fabricated, yet collectively, they amplified the prevailing suspicion, and suspicion possesses a far greater potency than certainty. The unraveling extended beyond the realm of science and permeated the political landscape. Leaders were solicited for official statements, but their pronouncements were invariably vague, evasive, and hesitant. They spoke of routine surveillance protocols, of scientific curiosity, and of no cause for alarm. However, their actions starkly contradicted their words. Military satellites were repositioned to meticulously monitor Atlas. Flights of aircraft conducted patrols over Colombian airspace. Budgets for classified projects experienced unexplained escalations. The public observed these contradictions, and once again, the prevailing silence did not offer solace. It amplified the unease. Religious institutions seized upon the prevailing atmosphere. Clerics proclaimed the bug sphere to be a divine artifact, irrefutable proof that prophecies were being fulfilled and that the final judgment was imminent. Ancient scriptural passages were cited in sermons, referencing Ezekiel's visionary wheels, the Vimanas described in Hindu traditions, and the trumpets of Revelation sounding in the heavens. Within places of worship, this discovery was recontextualized not as an archaeological find, but as an apocalyptic harbinger. Millions listened attentively, because when scientific certainty falters, faith invariably steps in to fill the void. The erosion of authority in one domain inevitably fuels the ascendancy of authority in another. Academia itself began to experience internal divisions. Some scholars endeavored to uphold established doctrines, publishing research that minimized the significance of anomalies, that treated Atlas as an unusual but naturally occurring phenomenon, and that dismissed the bug sphere as a fabrication unworthy of serious study. Others, in hushed conversations, acknowledged that the anomalies were indeed genuine, that the questions they raised could not be disregarded, and that their own burgeoning curiosity was creating significant internal conflict. Nevertheless, none dared to publish their findings openly. The apprehension of ridicule, the fear of financial repercussions, and the risk of being branded as purveyors of fringe theories kept them constrained. The ultimate outcome was a state of paralysis. A system designed to investigate truth found itself incapable of advancing because the truth itself threatened its fundamental structure. Historical precedent demonstrates that this is not a novel phenomenon. When the initial reports of meteorites emerged, scientists met them with derision, asserting that stones could not descend from the heavens, given the perceived perfection and immutability of the celestial realm. Farmers who discovered these fallen objects were subjected to mockery, their accounts dismissed as mere superstition. Only when tangible fragments became undeniable did the scientific community shift its perspective, subsequently presenting its acceptance as if it had always been receptive to such notions. The same pattern is repeating in the present day. The bug sphere is initially disregarded, perhaps until such a point when denial becomes untenable. Atlas is explained away through conventional means, until its inherent strangeness becomes undeniably apparent. And within the temporal and conceptual gap between initial denial and eventual admission, chaos proliferates. This chaos is not confined to laboratories and legislative bodies. It permeates domestic settings, manifests on illuminated screens, and is reflected in the restless gazes of ordinary individuals. The fundamental question disseminates like a contagion, whispered in convivial gatherings, debated in academic environments, and vociferously asserted in public demonstrations. If the sphere's existence is confirmed, what are its implications? If Atlas transcends the classification of a mere comet, who or what is its originator? If governments are engaging in deception, what are they actively concealing? The dissolution of certainty gives way to pervasive suspicion, and suspicion serves as the fertile ground from which unrest germinates. The global populace divides into distinct factions. Some staunchly adhere to scientific dogma, asserting that every anomaly must possess a naturalistic explanation, however contrived it may appear. Others embrace the conspiracy theories, firmly convinced that humanity is merely a component in an ancient, overarching experiment. A third group remains adrift in uncertainty, unsettled, and anxiously awaiting clarity that consistently eludes them. These divisions intensify as each new instance of silence and each further contradiction propel individuals deeper into their chosen ideological camp. Science is intended to foster unity through the pursuit of truth. However, in this instance, it fragments, splintered by pressures that it is incapable of withstanding. The breakdown is absolute. Archaeology cannot provide an explanation for the sphere. Astronomy cannot account for Atlas. Politics is incapable of acknowledging the truth, and religion is seizing the resulting void. The consequence is a maelstrom of confusion, wherein any possibility becomes conceivable, and wherein the most outlandish theories flourish due to their singular ability to satisfy the pervasive sense of enigma. And within this tempest, the most alarming potentiality emerges. What if these contradictions are not evidence of failure, but are intentionally designed? What if the architects themselves orchestrated this scenario? What if they desired for us to be confused, divided, and engaged in rampant speculation? What if the disintegration of scientific understanding is an integral component of their experiment, a metric for assessing our response when confronted with truths that defy explanation? Do we turn against one another, or do we strive for solidarity? Do we cling to erroneous certainty, or do we embrace the unknown? At this precise juncture, the experiment is actively unfolding. The bug sphere rests in undisclosed secrecy. Atlas continues its silent passage across the celestial expanse, and the very foundations of scientific inquiry are fracturing under the immense strain. The silence persists, and within that silence, the old world is perishing and a new one is beginning to take form. A world constructed not upon the bedrock of certainty, but upon the scattered remnants of contradiction. Part 8. The human experiment. The notion that we are solitary entities has consistently offered a sense of solace. It permits us to believe that our triumphs are solely our own achievements, that our errors are our responsibility to rectify, and that history is merely the chronicle of human volition. However, if the bug sphere represents what it appears to be, and if Atlas is indeed more than a mere comet, then that comfort dissipates entirely. We are no longer the principal authors of our own narrative. We are participants in an extensive examination, and the evaluators have been observing us since long before the construction of the pyramids. Consider the timing involved. 12,000 years ago, our planet was undergoing profound upheaval. Coastal regions were inundated by cataclysmic floods. Fiery projectiles rained from the sky. Civilizations whose traces are barely discernible were utterly obliterated. At that precise juncture, according to the available reports, the sphere was introduced, planted like a seed, awaiting its appointed time to resurface. Who was responsible for its placement, and what was their motivation? The most straightforward explanation is also the most unsettling. It was left behind to observe, to quantify, and to record the ascendancy and subsequent decline of the species that would eventually inhabit the Earth. It was not placed for our benefit. It was placed for their purposes. Now, contemplate the role of Atlas, an ancient wanderer predating our planet itself, masquerading as a comet as it navigates the vastness of the galaxy. When it approaches a world that has been seeded, it transmits a signal. The sphere then receives, deciphers, and responds. This cycle repeats incessantly, traversing system after system, civilization after civilization. We are not a unique occurrence. We are but one among countless experiments, one file among an immeasurable collection stored within a cosmic repository. This thought is almost unbearable, yet the accumulating evidence aligns with this hypothesis. What is being subjected to examination? Perhaps it is our intelligence, our capacity to develop technology, our ability to gaze at the stars and recognize them as potential abodes of other beings. Perhaps it is our moral compass, our propensity to construct societies characterized by mutual care, or our tendency to descend into perpetual conflict. Perhaps it is our resilience, our capacity to endure successive cataclysms, rebuilding time and again. The myths of inundations, the narratives of celestial fire, the collective memories of societal resets, all aligning with the pattern of experiments that have ultimately met with failure. And if this is the case, then we represent merely the most recent iteration, not the initial one, and possibly not the final one. Evidence of this grand experiment is dispersed throughout our surroundings, plainly visible. Ancient structures such as Göbekli Tepe emerge inexplicably, displaying advancements far beyond their historical period, only to be deliberately concealed, as if to obscure the truth until a later revelation. Ancient lore recounts deities descending from the heavens, not to bestow blessings upon humanity, but to administer judgment, to demand subservience, and to inflict punishment for transgressions. Genetic analyses reveal sudden evolutionary leaps, population bottlenecks, and interventions that defy complete explanation through natural evolutionary processes. Each clue represents a fragment of a more extensive, overarching design, a design that we have, until this present moment, steadfastly refused to acknowledge. The more somber possibility is that we are not being assessed for our potential for success, but rather for our utility, for eventual exploitation. What resources do we provide? What data do we generate? What energy do we yield? The bug sphere might be nothing more than a sophisticated sensor array, meticulously monitoring the growth of a cosmic harvest. Atlas could be the courier tasked with transporting the findings back to its creators. And when the season of harvest arrives, when the current cycle reaches its culmination, what will be appropriated? Yet, even this contemplation leads to another, even more chilling realization. What if the ultimate purpose of this test does not involve us at all, but rather them? What if we are not the subjects under scrutiny, but rather the instruments employed? A population meticulously controlled, utilized to gauge environmental conditions, to refine experimental parameters, and to prepare for outcomes that lie entirely beyond our comprehension. The architects may be entirely indifferent to whether we survive or perish. We may be nothing more than an additional entry in a vast interstellar laboratory logbook. Our conflicts, our empires, our inventions, all potentially reduced to mere marginal notes. The experiment has already illuminated one fundamental truth: our inherent fragility. The discovery of a single sphere and the detection of a single interstellar object have already fractured scientific consensus, shaken political stability, and divided the global populace into irreconcilable camps of belief and outright denial. Perhaps this division itself is the intended outcome. Perhaps the architects sought to ascertain the duration it would take for a species to descend into internecine conflict when confronted with truths that challenge their fundamental understanding. If this is indeed the test, then the experiment is already yielding tangible results, and those results are far from encouraging. At this precise moment, the examination continues. The bug sphere remains concealed within layers of secrecy. Atlas continues its silent drift across the celestial canvas, and the very frameworks of scientific understanding are buckling under the immense pressure. The silence endures, and within that silence, the established world is fading, and a new reality is beginning to coalesce. One that is not founded upon the assurance of certainty, but upon the disparate fragments of contradiction. The silent, yet resonant sphere awaits, its hum a vibration that might be random noise or a coded message. As the celestial body known as Atlas draws nearer to its closest point to the sun, its luminous coma brightens, its expelled gases forming a beacon-like stream in the void. Two sophisticated instruments are now perfectly aligned, initiating an experiment, and humanity finds itself under intense scrutiny. The observers remain silent, but their quietude is the most deafening aspect of all. What if the entirety of human existence has been the experiment itself? Not a single, isolated trial, but a continuous series of escalating trials. Initially, it was about mere survival. Could we withstand the harshness of the ice ages, the threat of predators, the constant struggle for sustenance? Subsequently, it was about cooperation. Could we forge communities, from small settlements to sprawling metropolises, without succumbing to internal strife? And then came the era of creation. Could we devise tools, express ourselves through art, develop language, master agriculture, and innovate technology? Each milestone served as a data point, each societal collapse a corrective measure. When ancient civilizations faced cataclysmic floods or devastating fires, these events may not have been mere failures of nature, but rather deliberate resets, a button pressed to clear the slate and begin anew. This grand experiment might not be confined solely to our species. Consider the other branches of humanity that once coexisted with us. The Neanderthals, the Denisovans, and the enigmatic ghost populations whose genetic legacy still resides within our very blood. Why did we endure while they vanished? Perhaps we were not the accidental victors of chance, but the meticulously selected variable in this experiment, chosen for our resilience, our capacity for adaptation, and our innate curiosity. The enigmatic sphere may have been strategically placed precisely to monitor whether this designated strain could achieve a threshold of self-awareness. The ancient myths describing divine retribution align with this hypothesis with an unnerving accuracy. The Sumerians chronicled the deliberations of Anu and Enlil as they decided the fate of humankind, choosing who would live and who would face annihilation. The biblical narrative recounts God observing the corruption of the earth and subsequently unleashing a great flood. Hindu scriptures speak of cyclical epochs, or yugas, each concluding with widespread destruction preceding the dawn of a new era. If we strip away the celestial terminology, what remains is the language of assessment, of tallied results, of tests successfully passed or tragically failed. This experiment is not merely physical, it is profoundly psychological. How do we respond when confronted with the unknown? Do we succumb to fear? Do we lash out with aggression? Or do we embrace curiosity and foster cooperation? The sphere is more than just an artifact. It is a mirror reflecting our responses back to our examiners. The manner in which we handle its discovery may prove to be the ultimate test, eclipsing the importance of the artifact itself. Thus far, our reaction has been characterized by panic, secrecy, denial, and a pervasive undercurrent of conspiracy. If this is how our performance is graded, we are demonstrably failing. However, The architects of this endeavor might not evaluate us by our own standards. Perhaps the very chaos of our reaction is precisely what they wish to observe. A species that fragments might be perceived as dangerous, but also as unpredictable, inventive, and consequently, more challenging to control. Conversely, a species that unifies, while appearing stable, might also be seen as stagnant, predictable, and therefore, more susceptible to manipulation. The test may not have a definitive pass or fail outcome. It may simply serve to gather data. The resulting classification, rather than a judgment, categorizes us, files us, records us, meticulously cataloging our strengths and weaknesses for purposes we cannot yet fully comprehend. Now, let us extend this contemplation further. If Atlas functions as a messenger, then perhaps this collected data is not stored here at all. It is conceivable that the sphere gathers it, encodes it, and transmits it upwards, with Atlas then relaying it outward, carrying our collective record into the vastness of the galaxy. Our conflicts, our artistic achievements, our victories, and our defeats, all are reduced to intricate patterns of frequency, streamed across the cosmic void to those who initiated this grand experiment. To them, we are not a history, nor a culture, nor an identity, but simply data. The most chilling possibility is that the experiment is nearing its culmination. Atlas may not be here to pose further questions, but to deliver the final answers. The sphere may not be waiting to collect more information, but to present its report. 12,000 years of compiled data. 12,000 years of meticulous observation, on the verge of being packaged, finalized, and dispatched. And what will transpire when this report is delivered? Will the examiners deem us ready for direct contact, or will they conclude that we are ripe for eradication? The human mind instinctively recoils from this notion, as we are fundamentally wired to believe in agency, in free will, in our capacity for independent choice. Yet, within the logical framework of this experiment, our choices have never been exclusively our own. They have consistently served as variables, as parameters, as factors meticulously measured against predetermined outcomes. We have never been the authors of our narrative. We have been the subjects, and the pen, it appears, has always been held by another hand. Presently, the final questions are being formulated. The sphere remains under guard, outwardly silent, yet imbued with a profound sense of purpose. Atlas, meanwhile, draws ever closer to the sun, its coma intensifying its radiance with each passing night. The experiment is escalating toward its zenith, and we, whether we acknowledge it or not, are all within the confines of this vast laboratory. Part 9. Countdown to contact. The world is engaged in a countdown, though no visible clock can display its unfolding moments. This temporal measure is etched in the slow, deliberate arc of a celestial body originating from a distant star. A traveler, predating Earth itself, is now hurtling towards its closest encounter with our sun. Astronomers have designated it perihelion, a moment defined by precise mathematical calculation, the apex of brilliance, the maximum energy output, the singular point in its trajectory where distance, heat, and light converge into a dramatic climax. This object has been christened Atlas. However, this name proves insufficient for what it has become. To billions, it is no longer merely a comet. It has evolved into a harbinger, a warning, a profound question, and perhaps even an answer. Governments are aware of the date, as are scientists, and indeed, anyone who has closely followed the unfolding narrative since its initial discovery. The alignment is an inevitability, as exact as a finely honed blade. The Earth rotates inexorably toward this moment, just as the galaxy itself completes its ceaseless turn. No pronouncement, no denial, no act of secrecy can avert it. The pertinent question is not whether it will occur, but rather, what will unfold when it does. With each passing day, Atlas intensifies its luminescence. Telescopes meticulously track its progress, their captured images disseminated across the internet. Yet, the data publicly released is deliberately sparse, carefully curated, and heavily filtered. Independent astronomers report perplexing anomalies, sudden flares of intense light, unexpected ejections of gas, and spectral readings that defy conventional interpretation. Official agencies respond with cautious explanations, attributing these phenomena to exotic ice formations, unique cosmic processes, or theoretical models stretched to their very limits. However, the public's patience has eroded. If this were merely a comet, why the pervasive secrecy? Why the conflicting narratives? Why the growing silence that intensifies with the object's proximity? This silence is mirrored on Earth. The bug sphere remains concealed and heavily guarded, its precise location unknown, its very existence often denied. Nevertheless, whispers of its presence invariably escape. Workers clandestinely speak of ground-shaking vibrations experienced during the night, of instruments registering frequencies beyond the human auditory range, and of lights that inexplicably flicker without any apparent source of activation. Some even claim that signals emanating from Atlas and the sphere's own emanations are mirroring each other, suggesting a dialogue taking place across millions of kilometers. This notion spreads with astonishing rapidity. The experiment, it appears, is no longer awaiting contact. The contact has, in fact, already commenced. Across the globe, societal pressure mounts. Protesters flood the streets, brandishing signs demanding transparency and asserting, "We have a right to know." Clergymen fill their places of worship, issuing dire warnings of impending judgment and referencing prophecies of celestial fire and heavenly trumpets. New cults emerge overnight, some promising salvation through fervent devotion to the sphere, while others urge their followers to prepare for an ascension concurrent with Atlas's zenith. Meanwhile, survivalists retreat deeper into their fortified bunkers, stockpiling provisions, convinced that the countdown culminates not in revelation, but in utter annihilation. The internet transforms into a maelstrom of information. Every telescopic image is subjected to intense scrutiny. Every rumor is amplified, and every instance of silence is interpreted as irrefutable proof. Videos purporting to depict clandestine convoys transporting the sphere, helicopters covertly carrying it beneath tarpaulins, and submarines ferrying it to submerged bases proliferate. Other videos claim that Atlas is already transmitting visible codes within its tail, that its brightness flickers in patterns akin to Morse code across the celestial expanse. None of these assertions can be definitively verified, yet millions embrace them as truth. This widespread belief stems from the fact that the official narrative has become increasingly unsatisfiable. In this vacuum of certainty, imagination readily assumes the mantle of truth. Concurrently, the scientific establishment begins to fracture. Some remain steadfast in their explanation of a natural comet, irrespective of its anomalous characteristics. Others, in hushed tones, privately concede that these anomalies defy conventional scientific explanation, acknowledging that they are witnessing something unprecedented. A select few dare to voice their thoughts publicly, suggesting the possibility of advanced technology, deliberate design, or conscious intent. They are met with ridicule, mockery, and an enforced silence. Yet, their dissenting voices find resonance, as they articulate what countless others contemplate in private. This internal division infiltrates the political sphere. Legislators demand hearings. Generals engage in hushed discussions of potential threats. Presidents skillfully evade direct questions. No one openly admits to fear, yet its palpable presence is felt by all. Military satellites are subtly repositioned. Budgets are quietly redirected. Space agencies are placed under the direct authority of intelligence committees. None of these strategic adjustments are publicly disclosed. However, their movements are discernible to those who possess the keenness to observe. The world appears to be preparing for an event of immense significance, though no one is willing to explicitly state its nature. And through all of this, the countdown persists, not measured in seconds or minutes, but in the inexorable pull of gravity and the relentless march of orbital mechanics. Atlas is advancing toward the critical moment when it will blaze with unparalleled intensity in our skies. And the bug sphere remains in its vigil, silent yet palpably restless, much like a drumhead stretched to its breaking point. Humanity finds itself suspended between the earth and the heavens, observing as two impossibilities converge, acutely aware that the climax cannot be deferred. The human imagination races ahead, envisioning myriad possibilities. Some harbor fears that the sphere will rupture, splitting open like a seed pod to unleash technology far beyond our current comprehension, perhaps representing salvation or perhaps signaling utter destruction. Others believe that Atlas will fragment, showering the Earth with debris, echoing the catastrophic events of the Younger Dryas period when fire and ice shattered ancient civilizations. Still others whisper of a profound resonance, of frequencies escalating to an unprecedented peak, of vibrations capable of altering minds, bodies, and even the very fabric of the planet itself. History offers little solace. The ancient myths of cataclysmic floods, of fire descending from the heavens, and of deities intervening in judgment all point towards cycles of renewal, of cosmic resets, and of endings that are simultaneously nascent beginnings. If the sphere was strategically placed to endure such a cycle, then it is plausible that the preceding countdown concluded in catastrophe. In that scenario, we are not the first to stand at this precipice. We may simply be the most recent test subjects in a cycle as ancient as time itself. Religious leaders implore their congregations to remain calm, yet many privately acknowledge that the portents are undeniable. Prophecies once dismissed as mere metaphor now appear to be unfolding in real time. Astronomers continue to issue updates, yet their language grows strained, their explanations increasingly hollow. Politicians offer reassurances of safety, yet their eyes betray an underlying apprehension. Tension mounts globally, for the world understands that this moment is unavoidable. And then the thought arises, the one that disrupts the sleep of even the most rational minds. What if the contact has already occurred, imperceptible to human senses, concealed within codes we cannot decipher, or frequencies we cannot perceive? What if the sphere has already responded, Atlas has already received its message, and the experiment has already entered its terminal phase? If this is the case, then the countdown is not towards communication, but towards decisive action. The night sky grows progressively brighter with each passing evening. The sphere's hum intensifies, a mere whisper on the wind. Humanity grows increasingly restless. Governments retreat into greater silence. Scientists find themselves more divided than ever. The countdown proceeds with an undeniable inevitability. And the question that once seemed abstract now feels immediate, urgent, and utterly inescapable. What will transpire when the sky speaks and the earth offers its reply? In the bustling metropolis of Tokyo, crowds congregate on rooftops, armed with telescopes, observing Atlas as it brightens each night, diligently photographing its faint crimson glow as if capturing irrefutable evidence of a divine entity's return. In Cairo, preachers proclaimed the celestial object to be the Eye of Ra, declaring that the sun god has dispatched a messenger to awaken the world. In New York City, protesters engage in clashes with riot police outside the United Nations headquarters, vociferously demanding that classified information concerning the enigmatic bug sphere be disclosed prior to the comet reaching its celestial apex. In Bogotá, unsettling whispers circulate, suggesting that Colombia has inadvertently become the epicenter of an impending apocalypse, the land chosen to house the artifact that will ultimately determine humanity's destiny. Across the globe, the countdown is palpable, though no conventional clock can measure its progression. Television stations broadcast live celestial maps, while newspapers publish detailed charts illustrating the object's trajectory. Podcasts engage in endless speculation regarding the events that will transpire on the day of perihelion. The world has collectively turned its gaze upward, and each passing day feels more weighty and significant than the one preceding it. Within the sterile confines of laboratories, scientists labor in an atmosphere of profound silence. Teams meticulously analyze the emissions emanating from Atlas, quantifying its gaseous components, modeling its dust composition, and running simulations that consistently yield contradictory outcomes. Each report is replete with terms such as unusual, unexpected, and unprecedented. The language of scientific certainty has collapsed, supplanted by a proliferation of cautious qualifiers and evasive disclaimers. In private consultations, some scientists admit their growing uncertainty, questioning whether they are indeed studying geological phenomena at all. One researcher posits the object's function as a disguised signaling buoy, another suggests it is a frozen repository of alien chemistry, while a third theorizes it to be a complex machine predating Earth itself. None of these unconventional hypotheses reached the public domain. Nevertheless, the rumors inevitably leak, further fueling the growing unrest outside. At the heavily secured facility where the bug sphere is housed, the number of guards has been doubled, the perimeter fencing has been elevated, and the circulating rumors have become increasingly bizarre. Some report that the sphere emits a faint luminescence in the darkness, while others claim it vibrates in perfect synchrony with the intensifying radiance of Atlas. Engineers assert that nearby sensors are recording signals within frequency ranges imperceptible to human hearing, distinct pulses that repeat with remarkable mathematical precision. This data is classified at the highest level, yet fragments invariably escape, circulating anonymously online, subjected to amateur decoding, reinterpretation, and often gross exaggeration. To the public consciousness, the sphere has already transcended its inert status. It is perceived as alive, actively communicating, and audibly responding to the celestial summons from the sky. Governments, grappling with the unpredictable nature of the situation, prepare for a spectrum of outcomes that lie beyond their capacity to forecast. Emergency broadcast scripts are meticulously drafted in advance, intended for immediate dissemination should widespread panic erupt. Military installations conduct rigorous drills, preparing for rapid deployment under the guise of responding to a natural disaster. Intelligence agencies circulate alarming reports detailing potential cult-orchestrated mass suicides and anticipated militia-driven attacks. Economic systems brace for impending collapse should the full truth be officially acknowledged. Leaders convene in sealed chambers, exchanging information in hushed tones, acutely aware that they possess no ultimate control over the events that are rapidly unfolding. Compounding this, there is the immense psychological burden, the gnawing apprehension that this countdown is inescapable. Individuals report experiencing vivid, unsettling dreams involving glowing orbs, disembodied voices whispering from the heavens, and visions of the oceans rising once more. Psychologists attribute these phenomena to mass hysteria, a global panic ignited by overwhelming uncertainty. However, what if there is another explanation? What if the sphere itself is subtly influencing minds, projecting phantom images, subtly shaping thoughts, and thereby preparing humanity in ways that currently elude our measurement? The demarcation between paranoia and external influence becomes increasingly blurred, and fear propagates with a velocity that far surpasses verifiable fact. This anticipation fractures along predictable societal divides. The optimists herald Atlas as a herald of a new epoch, a cosmic emissary bearing profound wisdom and promising a momentous leap into interspecies contact. Conversely, the pessimists foresee imminent doom, viewing the comet as a weapon poised to unleash the cataclysmic floods and fires that purportedly occurred 12,000 years ago. The pragmatists, clinging resolutely to scientific principles, insist that the phenomenon must be natural, asserting that no extraordinary event will transpire and that all will eventually be rationally explained. Yet, this insistence feels increasingly tenuous with each passing day, like paint flaking from a wall, unable to conceal the structural cracks beneath. The countdown continues, unstoppable, unalterable, and unavoidable. The comet's brilliance intensifies, the sphere's hum grows louder, and the world holds its collective breath. Part 10. The message for humanity. The pivotal moment arrives not with a dramatic crescendo, but with an unnerving silence. Not with definitive certainty, but with a palpable sense of dread. Atlas reaches its perihelion, blazing with an intensity never before witnessed. Its coma expands into a resplendent crimson halo that paints the nocturnal sky. Telescopes across the planet diligently record its light, spectrographs analyze its emissions, and sensors meticulously measure its energetic jets. However, the collected data defies conventional models, exhibiting behaviors that cannot be readily explained. The object is not only brighter, but it also displays a distinct rhythm, pulsing as if its luminescence waxes and wanes like a colossal heartbeat. While some dismiss this as a natural fluctuation, others interpret it as a deliberate signal. Regardless of the underlying truth, the world undeniably feels its impact. Simultaneously, deep within the clandestine facilities safeguarding the bug sphere, its characteristic hum escalates. Guards report intense vibrations that visibly shake the facility's walls. Lights flicker erratically in the corridors, and electronic equipment malfunctions without discernible cause. The sphere itself emits a subtle glow, a crimson reflection mirroring the hue of Atlas in the heavens above. Sensors detect a series of pulses emanating from the sphere, perfectly synchronized with the comet's rhythmic pulsations, as if the terrestrial orb and the celestial traveler are beating in unison across the vast expanse of the void. This connection is no longer a matter of speculation. It is undeniable, visually apparent, and tangibly experienced. The world reacts in a unified, albeit varied, manner. In houses of worship, bells toll in solemn unison, and preachers declare that prophecy has been fulfilled, proclaiming the return of the divine to judge the earth. In the streets, crowds congregate, drawn to witness the incandescent streak traversing the night sky. Their emotions a complex tapestry of awe, terror, and fervent prayer. Within their fortified bunkers, survivalists clutch their weapons, convinced that the prophesied deluge is imminent. In academic institutions, scientists gaze intently at their data streams, whispering their conviction that they are witnessing a profound act of communication, a dialogue not intended for human comprehension. And then, the initial shock reverberates. Instruments tuned to specific electromagnetic frequencies register bursts of structured noise. These are not random or natural occurrences, but meticulously patterned, repeating sequences exhibiting mathematical clarity. The signals originate from Atlas, and they are met with corresponding pulses from the bug sphere. Across millions of kilometers, a silent conversation commences. Humanity observes, yet remains incapable of deciphering the exchange. The language is alien, its structure far beyond our current understanding, yet the underlying intent is unmistakably clear. Two devices, separated by immense temporal and spatial distances, are once again communicating. The pervasive fear deepens. If this is indeed a form of communication, then it is not directed towards us. We are mere eavesdroppers, insignificant insects overhearing the pronouncements of celestial giants. The messages may contain directives, commands, reports, or even judgments. The sphere may be transmitting 12,000 years of accumulated data, every observation it has recorded about us, our wars, our civilizations, our technological advancements. Atlas, in turn, may be receiving, storing, and preparing to carry this information back into the galactic expanse. Humanity itself might be reduced to a mere case study, a single data point in an endless experiment, a narrative that began much as it is now ending. Yet, some perceive a glimmer of hope. If we can unlock the meaning of these signals, we might gain access to knowledge of unimaginable scope. Scientific breakthroughs that could propel us forward by centuries, medical advancements capable of eradicating all diseases, and energy sources that could power entire civilizations. The signals might not represent judgment, but rather an invitation, a doorway opening into the wider cosmos. All that is required is our ability to comprehend, to demonstrate our readiness. Governments strive to contain the burgeoning truth, but the sky cannot be concealed, nor can the subtle hum of the sphere be silenced. Data fragments inevitably leak, circulating online, decoded by amateur enthusiasts into intricate patterns resembling cryptic symbols, ancient maps, or complex instructions. Conspiracies multiply exponentially. Some propose that the signals represent coordinates pointing to concealed spheres buried across the Earth. Others suggest they are genetic sequences, coded messages embedded within the very structure of DNA. Still others interpret them as dire warnings, countdowns to an inescapable societal reset. Throughout this unfolding drama, the pulses intensify, growing faster, stronger, and more insistent, as if the dialogue is accelerating towards an inevitable conclusion. The climax is rapidly approaching, and the world is acutely aware of it. The ancient myths resonate once more, their echoes amplified by the present circumstances. The Sumerians spoke of deities arriving in fiery celestial chariots, dispensing judgment and then departing. The Hebrews recounted tales of cataclysmic floods sent to purify the earth. The Hindus chronicled cycles of ages, each concluding with widespread destruction. The Hopi warned of worlds that rise and fall, each being annihilated before the advent of the next. Now, the ancient myths and the present reality blur into a singular, potent narrative. Humanity finds itself in the same existential position as its ancestors, gazing skyward, awaiting judgment, anticipating renewal, and bracing for whatever awaits them. And then, profound silence descends. The pulses cease. Atlas gracefully drifts past its closest point to the sun, its brilliant glow gradually diminishing, its tail stretching away from our star. The sphere quiets, its hum receding back into a dormant stillness. The instruments register no further activity. The signals vanish. The dialogue abruptly concludes. To human perception, nothing has ostensibly changed. The world appears to be as it was before. Yet, the truth is universally understood. For 12,000 years, the cosmic entity awaited. For billions of years, the celestial wanderer traversed the void. Their paths intersected briefly. A communication beyond our comprehension occurred, and then they departed. What transpired? What pronouncements were made? It remains a mystery. Perhaps a communique was dispatched. Perhaps a verdict was rendered. Perhaps an invitation was extended. The grand experiment might have concluded, or it may have merely commenced. The profound disclosure for humankind is not embedded within the transmissions, nor the compiled data, nor the unintelligible vocalizations. The true revelation lies in the reflection they present to us. Confronted by enigma, we fragmented. Faced with the unknown, we succumbed to panic. Presented with boundless potential, we engaged in internecine conflict rather than earnestly seeking illumination. Both the celestial sphere and the comet revealed not only our solitude but our unpreparedness. Nevertheless, opportunities still linger. The celestial wanderer recedes into the nocturnal expanse. The cosmic sphere lapses back into silence, yet both endure. They will persist as they always have, and as they perpetually will. The creators are imbued with immense patience. The undertaking is of vast duration. Another epoch will dawn, and when it does, humanity will confront the identical inquiry once more. What course of action will we adopt when the heavens converse? And when the terrestrial realm offers its reply? The ensuing quietude weighs heavier than the signals themselves. For days, then weeks, individuals gaze skyward at the very spot where the celestial wanderer blazed most intensely, observing its luminescence wane, a crimson ember fading into the inky blackness. Some deem it an anticlimax, a disappointment, irrefutable evidence that nothing extraordinary transpired. However, the world no longer feels the same. An palpable energy permeates the atmosphere, akin to the reverberations of thunder long after the tempest has subsided. Governments issue statements, meticulously crafted and devoid of emotion. They classify the celestial wanderer as a comet, an anomaly of nature, nothing more. Regarding the cosmic sphere, they offer no commentary. Yet, their reassurances lack conviction because the preceding silence was unsettling and the subsequent silence is unbearable. People recall the distinct pulses, the sudden flares, the whispers of resonant frequencies. They remember the inconsistencies, the deliberate secrecy, the abrupt alterations in official pronouncements. The narrative cannot be suppressed because far too many witnessed its unfolding with their own senses. In abodes across the globe, individuals experience a sense of pervasive unease. They are plagued by dreams of luminous orbs, of enigmatic signals, of cataclysmic inundations and devastating conflagrations. Some find themselves drawn to ancient lore, revisiting narratives they once dismissed as mere fiction, now contemplating if they served as cautionary tales. Others succumb to creeping paranoia, utterly convinced that the experiment has reached its conclusion and the judgment has already been irrevocably passed. The state of uncertainty is more profound than any certainty, as no one can discern whether this silence portends safety or inevitable destruction. Religious doctrines undergo schisms under the immense pressure of these events. Certain factions proclaim the creators to be angelic beings, their transmissions divine messages concealed within frequencies imperceptible to human hearing. Others denounce them as malevolent entities, deceivers cloaked in effulgence and polished metal. Still others elevate them to the status of deities, representing the return of beings long foretold in prophecies. Faith bifurcates into disparate groups, each reinterpreting their tenets in light of recent occurrences. The spiritual panorama fractures, and within this fragmentation, new devotional congregations emerge, venerating the cosmic sphere, imploring Atlas, and anticipating the commencement of the subsequent cycle. Science endeavors to rebound, but the fissures persist. Some investigators assert that the transmissions were mere instrumental artifacts, systemic errors, or misinterpretations. Others quietly acknowledge that the patterns were indeed authentic, deliberately structured, and beyond dispute. However, even the most forthright voices cannot escape the stark reality that they are ignorant of the content of the discourse. The exchange transpired beyond their perception, eluding their grasp. Science is intended to provide answers, yet in this instance, it can only confess its own incomprehension, and this ignorance festers as an open wound in the collective psyche. The cosmic sphere once again rests, as inert as stone. Yet, its perception has been irrevocably altered. It is no longer merely an artifact, nor a subject of mere curiosity. It is now an active participant in a grander design. Whatever transpired between it and Atlas has concluded for the present, but the device continues its vigil as it always has. Individuals ponder its contents, its recollections, and its impending purpose. The silence feels like a brief interlude, not a definitive conclusion. And herein lies the most profound disquiet. The creators, whoever they may be, possess a patience measured not in years, but in millennia. They have observed us for 12,000 years already. They will continue to observe us for another 12,000, should they so choose. We are intrinsically part of their grand experiment, woven into their narrative, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. Atlas may have continued its journey, but others will undoubtedly follow. The sphere may remain quiescent, but it possesses the capacity to reawaken. The cycle appears to have no discernible end, only intervals between these comprehensive evaluations. The paramount message for humanity is not a pronouncement inscribed in cryptic symbols, nor a word concealed within beams of light. It is a looking glass, a stark reflection of our collective nature when confronted by the unknown. We fractured. We succumbed to panic. We engaged in conflict. Yet, we also dared to dream. We conceived of deities and architects. We sought meaning. We questioned every established tenet of our understanding. Perhaps this is the very essence of the endeavor. Perhaps the purpose of the experiment is not to ascertain whether we succeed or fail, but to observe if we retain the capacity for imagination, for reaching out, for a yearning for truth, even when its revelation instills profound fear. The heavens have once again darkened. The sphere has fallen silent once more. However, the gravity of this moment lingers. Humanity has been reminded that we are not solitary beings, that we never were, that the universe is far more ancient and far more bizarre than we dare to concede. The architects have communicated without uttering a sound, and the silence they leave behind is the most resonant utterance we have ever encountered. Conclusion: standing at the precipice, the world did not disintegrate when Atlas reached its zenith. The skies did not unleash a torrent of fire. The oceans did not surge to engulf the coastlines. The cities did not crumble into dust. On the surface, outwardly, nothing appeared to have changed. And yet, beneath the veneer of tranquility, a fundamental transformation had occurred. Humanity has witnessed something indelible, heard something irreversible. The sphere communicated with the heavens. The heavens responded, and in that exchange, the illusion of our isolation was irrevocably shattered. For centuries, we perpetuated the notion that we were the architects of our own destinies. We held the conviction that history was a relentless march of human volition, and that the stars were distant celestial bodies bearing no influence on our fate. The revelation of the cosmic sphere created a rupture in that deeply held belief. The arrival of Atlas widened that rupture into an irreparable wound. If we are under observation, if we are being tested, if we are an integral part of a cycle predating our civilizations, then our narrative is not solely our own. It constitutes but a single chapter within a much larger tome, penned by unseen hands. This realization is simultaneously terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it underscores our insignificance, our fragility, our vulnerability, and our subjection to forces beyond our control. Liberating because it signifies that we are not alone, that the cosmos is alive with sentient intelligence, that the grand saga of life extends far beyond our wildest imaginings. For some, this understanding plunges them into despair. For others, it ignites hope. For all, it is an inescapable reality. The ancient myths of our forebears no longer resonate as mere fantasies. They now sound like echoes of memories, albeit distorted, yet fundamentally true. They are warnings conveyed through the ages via symbolic representations and melodic compositions. Deluges, conflagrations, luminous wheels, deities descending from the celestial realms. All are vestiges of previous epochs, earlier encounters, and preceding trials. We once dismissed these as legends. Yet, they now seem like historical accounts rendered in allegorical form. If this interpretation holds true, then our ancestors faced the very same quandary we confront today, and their responses dictated their very survival. The remnants of their civilizations stand as stark reminders of the consequences when societies are assessed and found wanting. The invaluable lesson imparted by the Bugosphere and Atlas is not merely that we are not solitary, but that our journey is far from complete. We are a work in progress, an ongoing experiment, a narrative yet to reach its conclusion. The architects have revealed their intentions, albeit fleetingly, just enough to remind us that the cycle persists. The ultimate question is not what they desire, but what we shall do with the profound knowledge they have bestowed upon us. Will we succumb to overwhelming fear, tearing ourselves asunder as we debate interpretations for which we have no proof? Will we erect religions centered on these artifacts, passively awaiting divine intervention for salvation or condemnation? Will we retreat into a state of denial, pretending as though nothing transpired, seeking solace in an enforced silence? Or will we rise to the occasion? Will we embrace the reality that the universe is far more extraordinary than we ever conceived, that our history is far more ancient than we believed, that our future remains unwritten? If the experiment is indeed real, then perhaps the architects are not seeking absolute perfection, but rather untapped potential, not blind obedience, but unwavering resilience, not stoic silence, but boundless imagination. Perhaps the true test lies in our capacity to confront the unknown and still advance, still innovate, still pursue truth. If this is the case, then the message for humanity is remarkably straightforward. We are not finished, and we are not powerless. The countdown has passed, but another is inevitable. Atlas drifts away, but another celestial wanderer will surely follow. The sphere lies dormant, but it possesses the ability to reawaken. The cycle is not concluded, merely suspended. The architects possess patience, a patience that transcends human comprehension, and they will wait for as long as it takes. When the next critical juncture arrives, will we be prepared? Humanity now stands at the threshold of two divergent futures. In one, we persist in our current state, divided, fearful, clinging to outdated certainties even as they disintegrate. In such a future, the subsequent test will undoubtedly prove our undoing, just as it has for those who preceded us. In the other, we confront the unvarnished truth. We accept the profound mystery. We rise to meet the challenge. In that future, the next test may propel us into an entirely new era, an era where we transition from passive subjects to active participants, from mere experiments to intrepid explorers. The sphere is silent, yet its presence communicates. The sky is dark, yet its memory continues to glow. The architects remain unseen, yet their influence casts a long shadow over us. The narrative is far from over, and its conclusion is yet to be inscribed. The message is not simply that we are observed, judged, or tested. The message is that we are perceived, that we hold significance, and that our choices resonate across the vast expanse of the cosmos. We may never fully comprehend the discourse that transpired between the sphere and Atlas. We may never decipher their language, nor fully grasp their intentions, but this much we understand with certainty. They spoke, and in their speaking, they reminded us of the most ancient truth of all. The universe is vibrant with life, and it is attentive.